full gas. Into the final 200 metres, the chase has begun. What a sprint, never seen this before. Absolutely fabulous.
Hello, welcome. It's day 3 of Hammer Series in Sittard-Helene and the final push for glory in the Hammer Chase. A first across the line race for teams on time trial bikes that will decide who wins the third running of Hammer Limburg. My name is Declan Quigley. I'm joined once again by Robbie McEwen, and we're looking forward to another thrilling day of all-action racing in the Netherlands. So shortly, Team Ineos will lead the teams away in the runner-up group, with victory in the Hammer Chase still on the table. Deceuninck-QuickStep have won the Hammer Climb and Hammer Sprint and will have the honour of leading off the finalist group a little later on. But first, let's remind ourselves just how the Hammer Series works. The Hammer Series. 3 disciplines: climb, sprint and chase, team versus team, no individual ranking. Each team has 7 riders. 5 riders are then picked to race each discipline. All 3 disciplines are raced on short circuit loops. In the Hammer Climb and Hammer Sprint, the first 10 riders to cross the finishing line on each lap will score points for their team. The team with the most points at the end of each discipline wins. The final discipline is the Hammer Chase, a fox and hounds team time trial. Teams are split into 2 groups, finalists and runners-up. The groups and the team's starting positions are determined by their rankings after the climb and sprint. The first team in the finalist group whose 4th rider crosses the finishing line wins the event overall. While teams are making their final preparations, they're conducting their final warm-ups ahead of this unique 49.6-kilometre challenge. That is the Hammer Chase. Robbie, it's been all action so far in the first 2 days in Hammer Limburg. Deceuninck-QuickStep have dominated, but there's a lot for the other teams to race for today.
Oh, there is, absolutely. It has been complete domination by Deceuninck-QuickStep on the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Sprint, but all that gets them, importantly, it is a decent gap. It gets them 30 seconds, not more. Doesn't matter how many points you score. When you start at the top of the table, you have a 30-second gap to the next chasing team. They, in turn, have 28 seconds to the team behind them, and so on down through the order. The gaps get a little bit smaller as we drop down the order. So it's a real advantage to have that 30 seconds, but you're going to be in sight quite often, and I think Deceuninck-QuickStep might catch themselves just looking in the rear vision mirror, looking out for Bora Hansgrohe. I think it's going to make them quite nervous, that team led by Matej Bodnar, fantastic time trialist.
Yeah, he's been super strong this week, hasn't he? It's certainly quite the carrot for Bora. It's been all action over the first 2 days. Let's take a look now at some of the highlights from yesterday's Hammer Sprint. Well, the wind blew in Sittard-Helene and the crowd came out to watch the teams for 8 laps of a 12.4-kilometre circuit. The Deceuninck-QuickStep squad, well, that's the one that all the teams had in their sight. So they were fired into action immediately. We saw some attacks coming. Filippo Ganna among those that really wanted to get going while the wind blew.
Well, first sprint, it was Fabio Jakobsen from Deceuninck-QuickStep. They started back where they left off the day before, and then a big crash for Lawrence Naesen. Overlapped the wheel, also took out Alex Frame, and also caused Guillaume van Kiersburg to be dropped out of the group. But up front, they were oblivious to it. Jakobsen continued on his winning ways, and then it was his teammate, Yves Lampaert, who thought, I'll get some big points as well, holding off Bodnar.
So Yves Lampaert, the Belgian national road race champion, among those that were sprinting for glory, and he had quite a thing going with Matej Bodnar for a few laps, and the groups were changing on a regular basis as Philip Jakobsen wanted to get involved as much as possible. Anytime that his teammate wasn't there, the final sprint across the line, double points, confirming the glory that went the way of Deceuninck-QuickStep. Dominant performance across the 2 days, more than 1,000 points clear of the next best team, Bora Hansgrohe. Team Jumbo-Visma also handily placed in 3rd and looking to do something today. The runner-up group, we're going to see them very shortly, somewhat surprisingly for Team Ineos. They're in that chase for the stage honours today. Mitchell and Scott as well are also going to be very disappointed to be out in the first one, but I think they're super motivated to see can they win today's Hammer Chase. So everyone's bouncing to glory today. That's the plan at any rate. And the crowd are out in force, and the weather conditions are absolutely exceptional, Robbie. It's been beautiful today, in marked contrast to yesterday, where there was the threat of rain throughout. The wind really blew.
Yeah, we did have that rain shower come across, and it was blowing about 45 kilometres an hour. And this morning, it was just a fantastic morning. It even got me motivated enough to get out on the bike, and I took a little loop myself around through Limburg and down to Valkenburg, over the Karlberg as well. Quite a lot slower than they do in Amstel Gold Race, of course, but great morning for a ride. Now I can sit back and just talk about others riding during the afternoon.
Yeah, you can watch the likes of Roberto Ferrari, former sprint sparring partner of yours, and let's see if we've caught up with anyone down in the paddock area. Team Ineos are getting ready to get going. Owain Doull is among their quintet today.
Owain Doull, you rode Hammer Limburg last year and in 2017 when Team Sky were the overall winners, and so you must know the course like the back of your hand. So what to expect from today?
Yeah, I've done it a few times now. That's one of the nice things with the Hammer series. The courses don't change too much, so you kind of become familiar and you can kind of start to predict how they're going to play out. Obviously, I think it's a lap longer this year at 50k, so harder again as usual. Yeah, I think we have a decent gap over the next team, so we're going to try and hold them off for as long as possible, and then if we do get caught, we switch to plan B and stop playing the games.
So riders talk about Hammer being the hardest races that they do. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah, 100%. You know, you see it all in all the media stuff, and everyone's always saying how intense and hard it is, and it's genuinely the truth. I came straight here from altitude, and it's the perfect racing / training / intensity block you could do. You can't push yourself as hard as this in 5 hours of racing any time else in the year, whether training or racing.
26-year-old Welshman Owain Doull looking forward to the opportunity for Team Ineos to win the Hammer Chase today and at least hang on to 9th in the standings. It's certainly been a bruising encounter for many of the teams over the first couple of days. Bit of a surprise to see Team Ineos in there. Mitchell and Scott as well, further back than they would like, but they've still got something to race for today.
They do, and that's what they're really focusing on now. Both teams are disappointed not to make it into the finalist group and be racing for the overall win of Hammer Limburg, but they're both now absolutely focused on this Hammer Chase and trying to win the chase. Because, of course, out of both groups, regardless of which group you're in, you can win the chase if you set the fastest time. So this now becomes not so much about whether they finish 9th or 10th overall. It's about can they win the chase and beat every other team. And I just stopped in and spoke with the guys from Mitchelton Scott, and I spoke to Michael Hepburn. They're confident, and they say we're not going to look at who's passing who or anything tactical like that. We are riding as if it's just a one-day team's time trial. We really want to win this, and we believe we will.
Well, we've caught up with the Mitchell and Scott DS, Matthew Wilson. How is he motivating his troops today?
I'm with Matt Wilson, the sport director for Mitchelton Scott. Matt, you won the series last year and you came into this year with high hopes, but it hasn't really worked out to plan so far.
No, it hasn't at all. Friday's performance in the climb was really below where we wanted to be, and it's really hard to come back from that, a 14th place. Yesterday's performance was pretty good. The guys gave it every shot, but yeah, we just couldn't come back from that first stage.
And can you pinpoint the difference between last year and this year? Obviously, lots of factors at play in each individual race, but is there anything that you would highlight to be able to get to the reasons why it's been such a different Hammer series for you this year?
The climb traditionally here, we haven't gone well in the last couple of years, but the 14th was just so far behind. With the point system the way it is, it's just too hard to come back. I think a lot of teams are bringing their A game to this race as well, which is great to see. So yeah, we've just got to do better next time.
So just looking at today's Hammer Chase, you are second off behind Team Ineos, 30 seconds behind them. Can you catch them?
Yeah, I think so. We've got a pretty good team here for the team time trials. We've got 4 specialists out of the group of 5. So yeah, we're pretty confident of being able to get to Ineos, and hopefully we can get a stage win, get something out of the weekend.
Okay, thank you.
The most successful team in Hammer Series history, never lower than 3rd. Well, that's going to be revised. They've had a couple of wins across the way. Hammer Chase is an opportunity for them to take the victory. And let's see how the format works now.
Well, as we zoom in from outer space and down onto the course here, the start and finish at the Tom Dumoulin Bike Park. And It's the same 12.4 kilometre circuit that the riders took on yesterday in the Hammer Sprint. They're very familiar with the course. It will hold absolutely no surprises. There's a lot less wind today, so it'll make that riding in team's time trial formation a lot easier. These very long straights, and was on this section yesterday, the wind was hitting them hard from the left-hand side. But, it'll be a much smoother and easier ride technically on the time trial bikes. Probably the most difficult corner on the circuit down there, high speed with a slight tailwind. That long straight coming up after that on the way back into Sittard. And wide open roads, smooth surfaces all the way in. Just this hairpin turn with just under 600 metres to go. And 50 kilometres of racing. So they've got about an hour to make the catch.
No problem, get it done in an hour. 4 laps of 12.4 kilometres. That makes up just a smidgen under 50k of bike racing today. Plenty of twists and turns along the way, and these vehicles are just that little bit more difficult to conduct in anything other than a straight line. They're built for going fast. They're drag racers of a type, aren't they? And Team Ineos are preparing, getting set to get underway. They will lead the teams away in the runner-up group. They'll be joined by Team Mitchell and Scott, as we've mentioned. Team Carroll have qualified in third position for the runner-up group. They'll be third off the starting line. And into action, Israel Cycling Academy, UAE Team Emirates, Team Dimension Data, Team Nippo Vini Fantini also. The 7 teams set to get into action. And it kicks off pretty quickly, and the gaps between the teams as they start tend to shrink as it goes down. So maximum of 2 minutes and 47 seconds between Team Ineos, first squad away, and the last team away, the Nippo Vini Fantini squad. 28 seconds between the second and third, 25 between third and fourth, 23, 21, and then 20. So it sort of condenses and can very often lead to a situation where several teams converge out on the course, and that makes it complicated for the teams to figure out exactly how to continue to do a team time trial while they're in amongst another team.
Well, what helps them figure that out is that the commissaires are really on the job with those flags. There's a warning flag if you draft too much on the team in front of you. In fact, if you get past, you need to back off, move out to the side and give distance and not try and just take advantage of the slipstream of another team. But the commissaires are all over it. The teams are also very aware of the consequences and could lead to a disqualification and being told to leave the course.
So the 4 teams that we've picked out from the 7 that are racing in this runner-up group. Team Ineos have a quintet of riders been in action already 2 days. Leonardo Basso, Endul, Kenny Alisson, Filippo Ganna and Diego Rosa. Quite a mix of talent in there for the Limburg champions.
Well, not a team of specialists, and we did hear from Mitchelton Scott director Matt Wilson that they do have 4 specialists: Alexander Edmondson, Michael Hepburn, Cameron Meyer, Rob Stannard and Eduardo Affini. So very strong time trialists through and through, men with a lot of experience in the team's time trial. Perfect for the chase.
Well, 9th in the chase in Limburg in 2018, 11th in Stavanger a couple of weeks ago. Bit of work to do for Roberto Ferrari, Yusuf Mirza, Manuele Mori, Roy Oliveira and Jasper Philipsen. A lot of eyes on that young Belgian talent.
Dimension Data, well, they've had a bit of a tough time here in Hammer Limburg. Lars Buck, Jay Thompson, Mark Renshaw, the Dutchman Tom Jelte Slachter and the strong Norwegian Erasmus Tiller. They'll be trying to get Dimension Data up and over the top of a couple of teams starting in front of them.
That's 4 teams that are likely to have plenty of motivation to do something today, but all the teams involved will be looking with interest to try and improve their ranking and perhaps take honours in Hammer Chase in Hammer Limburg 2019. There's the scene out over the Tom Dumoulin bike park in the sports zone here in Sittard Helene. It's an extraordinary centre, more than 3 kilometres of a road racing track, and it includes all sorts of options. We're in car with the Mitchell and Scott and Team Ineos squads today, and we'll be listening to see and to hear what advice they have for their riders. And indeed what instructions they've got for them. How do you instruct? How do you direct a team out there in a team time trial?
From what I've heard from Mitchelton Scott, they'll be directing it as if they're not worried about actually catching teams to make up a place as such, but ride it as smoothly as possible for the overall fastest time. So I think really just concentrate on yourselves will be the message. Stick to the tempo, stick to the plan.
And when things go wrong, as they sometimes have done in the past, we've seen that for the Team Ineos or Team Sky, as they had that difficulty in Hammer-Stavanger last year, where one of the riders hit the deck, a couple of them indeed, and they had to try and regroup and figure it out. They'll try and put that behind them as Team Ineos begin the Hammer Chase in Hammer Limburg 2019. The runner-up group, led away by the squad that finished 11th in the Hammer Climb, 6th in the Hammer Sprint yesterday, all translated to an aggregate position that puts them 9th overall, and therefore the leading group, the leading squad from the runner-up group. They just have a couple of hairpins and around and about and out of the sports zone, and it's about trying to keep it all together in this position in these early turns.
And this is how quick it goes. 30 seconds is gone, and away go Mitchelton, Scott, Edmondson, Hepburn, Meyer, Stannard and Affini. So some really experienced riders as well as very good time trialists. It's Edmondson who leads them away. You can't afford to take off all too quick, because pretty quickly you're straight on the brakes and through that hairpin out of the Tom Dumoulin bike park. And once you get out on the open roads, time to really open the throttle. So we have a look at Caja Rural.
So you don't fall off just now, and you want a decent holder-upper, and that disaster was averted. Good news for the Caja Rural squad. 28 seconds after Mitchell and Scott have left, and they're 58 seconds, just under a minute behind Team Ineos. It's going to be a stretch, but you know what? They've got fully 50 kilometres to do it, and just 4 riders in action for the Spanish squad.
Well, that is a huge disadvantage, going off with one less than the number you're allowed to have, and that will be a real carrot dangling for this team, the Israel Cycling Academy, chasing Caja Rural. So 5 against 4. I would expect that Israel Cycling Academy should be able to make the catch on Caja Rural, and Team UAE in turn will be thinking they can catch both of those teams in front of them.
Decent performance in the sprint yesterday for Roberto Ferrari, Yusuf Mirza, Manuele Mori, Roy Oliveira and Jasper Philipsen into action to try and close down a 25-second gap to the team in front of them, and minute and 106 seconds to the leaders up front. Team Ineos well into their effort now.
Well, it's not long now until Team Dimension Data take off, and what I said about UAE being able to catch the 2 teams in front of them, I think it's quite possible that this team right here, Dimension Data, can catch the 3 teams in front of them. So I think after probably 2 of the 4 laps, I think we could see a few teams coming together and passes being made fairly quickly in this Hammer Chase.
Yeah, well, Dimension Data of 21 seconds to find to get on terms with the UE Team Emirates squad just in front of them. 20 seconds for the Nippo Vini Fantini quintet as they race into action. And Nippo Vini Fantini represented by Ruben Acosta, Joan Bu, Mario Cima, Sho Hatsuyama and Giovanni Lonardi. They're the 5 riders that are the final riders to get into action in the runner-up group in the Hammer Chase. Through the early turns for the rider leading off, huge responsibility, I suppose, to just try and keep it all knitted together. A responsibility too for the final rider in the line to make sure he gets up and into action. So they managed to put themselves together quite neatly and tightly for Team Ineos out on the main road now.
Well, there's the formation. The man on the front, he just swings away, 35, Diego Rosa. He hands it over to Leonardo Basso. Kenny Elisonda, he's the smallest man in the group, number 33, and one of the stronger men behind him then, Owen Dool. One of the strongest riders sitting behind one of the smallest riders. It evens things out. And then, of
because
course,
he doesn't need as much shelter?
Well, he could use this shelter, but he can cope without it. He's strong enough to hit a little bit more wind, because Kenny Elisonda, let's face it, doesn't provide much of a slipstream, weighing in at 52 kilograms.
And then Elisson gets a little bit more shelter coming back down the line, I guess. Yeah,
well, he'll come back onto the back of Diego Rosa. But let's face it, anybody in the team is big enough for Kenny Elisonda to find some shelter.
And the riders, I mean, some of them view a Hammer Chase situation with trepidation, because a team time trial, is one of the most nerve-wracking and most anxious moments for any rider. Some feel the big responsibility to try and perform and to do a great job. Others feel, if I can just stay in there for as long as possible and at least be able to do some sort of a turn.
Well, the thing with a team's time trial like this Hammer Chase, if you're on a good day, they're really enjoyable. If you're not on a good day, it's one of the worst places you can find yourself, having to try and hang in there and not let your team down.
Well, and not letting the team down will be a major focus for the Mitchell Scott squad, who are chasing Team Ineos at a remove of 30 seconds, and we look forward to the intermediate split. Comes about 7.4 kilometres into the lap. We should get some information about what the progress is, so keep in mind the fact they were 30 seconds down on Team Ineos beginning this runner-up group.
Well, just looking at the two teams, the formation, the speed, they're on the same stretch of road, and up in the distance you can see Team Ineos, and for mine that is less than 30 seconds. Mitchelton and Scott are already making big headway, closing that gap and looking really good. It is very early, but look at those power outputs. Cameron Meyer sitting in the wheels, 300 watts.
All looks very
You can
smooth,
see it's not always just smooth, steady, same power output. It's just a little bit more, feather it a little bit, find the best part of that slipstream. Try and make it as easy as possible when you're in the wheel. So when you get on the front, then you can hit the big wattage.
Yeah, Cam Myers, around about 300 watts or so, just following in the wheel tracks of his teammate Rob Stannard. Meanwhile, down at the back of the group at the moment is Michael Hepburn. He's already made an effort and he will ride up through to the front, and it will be instructive, and we'll start to see the relative strengths between the riders based on the length of their turn. That they'll all ride through for the most part, but it's the length of the turn that will really give us an indication of who are the really big, strong power riders and who are there to try and assist them. Team Ineos maintaining a gap of 30 seconds on the Mitchell and Scott squad behind. Are they managing to hold on to that? Are they extending it? One of the instructions coming from the team car, it's showing at 23 seconds now. So for the Carroll squad, they've got work to do. Mitchell and Scott, though, are starting to make inroads into the advantage of Team Ineos. Their 5 riders still together and working smoothly, but can they maintain it?
Remember, guys, when you get onto the back of the group, sit up high when the other guy's coming back on to give them an easier chance to get on. Good job so far.
So just a few directions, reminders there from Brett Lancaster himself, the Australian team director of Team Ineos. Very good in the team's time trial, and of course that track pedigree. Gold medalist in the team's pursuit in 2004 in Athens for Australia, along with Mark Renshaw, who's also riding here today.
And an important opportunity for the teams to actually engage in team time trial racing in a full competition situation. And they're relatively rare, and they're always welcome because they can fine-tune and hone. Really, it's only in competition that they really go absolutely full bore. So that's where the real work is done, isn't it?
You don't get too many opportunities during the season to ride a team's time trial. And there is a team's time trial in the Tour de France this year, for example. A guy like Michael Hepburn, he'll be the anchor man of Mitchelton Scott. He's trying to force his way into the Tour de France team. A good performance today will put him firmly on the radar and hopefully jag him that last spot.
It's not about breaking your teammates, though, is it? It's about showing that you can bring them with you, do your turns, do a slightly longer one maybe, or I mean, how do you actually put it all out there without destroying your teammates is probably the big question.
Well, when you look at it overall, in the Hammer Series, in the Hammer Chase, you're only as strong as your 4th best rider. You start with 5, or in fact, Caja Rural only starting with 4. They can't afford to lose anybody because the time is taken on the 4th rider across the line. So if you're out there and you're the strongest, it's not about ripping through and upping the pace on your teammates. It's about trying to nurse them through, doing longer turns, holding that pace high, keeping it really nice and even, not blowing your teammates up.
So tough one for Carroll, starting with 4, and they're not got their full lineup in there. I'm just trying to see. It looks like Joel Nicolau Beltran is the one rider there who's not included among their 5. So disappointment for Carroll, and they're already leaking considerable time. They've lost 19 seconds to Team Ineos, who started first. So I suspect they could well be dropping back into the clutches of Team UAE, who also in turn have Team Dimension Data about to catch them.
Yeah, this is the first catch we're going to see, it looks like. And Dimension Data, I said before the start, I do expect them to make a few catches. They've already caught up really quickly within 10 kilometres onto the back of Team UAE. And now they'll be looking to make the pass. And coming up towards that next right-hand corner.
And that's the complication, trying to get this done without losing
This is interesting.
Too much time.
They're getting a yellow flag. They're the team making the catch, but they're being yellow flagged by the commissaire, which means do not sit in the slipstream, choose the other side of the road. You see them now swing out to the left, and they need to go ahead and make the pass, not come up there, rest more or less, just picking up some slipstream, make the pass or back off, and that's exactly what they're doing now. Now it will be up to Team UAE, who they've caught, to not get in the slipstream of Dimension Data, or they themselves will get yellow flagged. So all the teams, they know the warning system, and after a yellow flag comes the red flag. You'll get a penalty. If you get it again, you will be disqualified from the Hammer Chase.
Yeah, so surprised to see that, especially as they're the team doing the catch. So the Team Dimension Data team have dispensed with the UAE Team Emirates squad. UAE Team Emirates, they're starting to put them entirely behind them, and that's nicely done. For UAE Team Emirates, of course, they have to now in turn also be wary and be careful that they don't sit in the slipstream of the Dimension Data team and don't themselves cop any sort of a warning or any sort of penalty in terms of yellow flag, orange flag, or any other flag, as the Israel Cycling Academy squad are now caught Caja Rural. Israel Cycling Academy started 4th in this runner-up group, and they made up a gap now of 25 seconds to Caja Rural, put them behind them smoothly and without too much difficulty for the Israel Cycling Academy team. 15th in the chase in Limburg 2018. The best overall position of 13th from Stavanger in 2018 as well. So for them, an opportunity, I think, for a best possible performance in Hammer Series history.
So you see now Caja Rural, they are flirting with the yellow flag. They do need to move themselves out to the left, and it won't be long until a commissaire comes up. Yep, and there it is. Yellow flag.
Well, they're pretty on it, aren't they?
Right on cue.
I have to say the commissars are really aware of how this works now, and over the couple of years you can see how the sophistication and the understanding of the teams, the officials, everyone involved in it has really developed to a new level. So Nelson Soto, number 137, moves to the left, makes way for a teammate to come through and take it up, and they're being careful. Xavier Canillas is making sure that he stays out of the slipstream of the team in front.
Yeah, they were just sliding back a little bit to the right and picking up just still a tiny bit of slipstream. They've got to be very careful because they will get then an orange flag. If they don't heed that warning, the next one is red, and that is out of the race. This is Team Dimension Data. They were off to a fast start as well, and they've already picked up a team in front of them in UAE.
Dimension Data are on a bit of a charge because they started this Hammer Chase 2 minutes and 7 seconds down on Team Ineos. I can tell you they're 1 minute and 56 seconds down when they went through the intermediate points. So not only had they overhauled UAE Team Emirates, now with the Israel Cycling Academy in their sights, but the Team Dimension Data squad seemed to be the squad on a charge. Also on a bit of a charge, Mitchelton Scott, fastest of all. We do believe, looking for the correct time, but yeah, down to 14 seconds, make that 13, and surely Team Ineos are now within the sights of the Mitchell and Scott squad. They're coming with a charge, and how can the Team Ineos team respond to this? If they get saved anything, it's still very, very early stages.
It's still very early, but I think they're just riding for what they're worth, and we did note that Mitchelton Scott were here with a number of specialists for the team's time trial for this Hammer Chase, and you look at the setup of Team Ineos. They're there with Kenny Alessandro, a pure climber, Diego Rosa, also a climber. So for mine, they were always going to struggle to hold off Mitchelton Scott. And I thought maybe halfway might be the time when they would catch them. They've almost got it done after 1 lap of 4.
It's Edward Affini on the front for the Mitchell and Scott squad. He's a young rider making quite the name for himself. He's one of the stars of yesterday's Hammer Sprint. He was like an eager young puppy, wasn't he? He wanted to get attacking any time he possibly could. He had to be reined in a couple of times and then really went for it. Got clear, scored some points, and what a great contribution it was from the young Italian rider, just 22 years of age. He's a tall rider, he's a strong rider, and he and his teammates have closed down now to within 12 seconds of the Team Ineos squad, who need to try and put that back together again after that right-hander.
Yeah, a little bit sloppy through that corner. You saw Rosa try to just tip it in a little bit early, and his teammate in front of him hadn't done that yet. Nearly just touched the wheel slightly and to readjust. All back together and back into formation now as they were on the verge of re-entering the Tom Dumoulin bike park to finish lap 1 of 4, and with a lead of just 9 seconds over Mitchelton Scott. So they've taken back already 21 seconds of that gap and are on their way to the front of this runners-up group. What is most important to them is trying to set the fastest time in the Hammer Chase overall.
So 112.5 kilometre lap is about to be completed for Team Ineos. They're still in the lead, still hanging on to 9th place overall, but it's looking a little bit ominous for the Ineos squad. Ryan Dool having dropped to the back. He was the man on that on the front through that right-hander and immediately stepped off the gas, dropped up and let his teammates get back on. Instructed as well, didn't Kenny Ellison was out of the saddle, absolutely flat out, just to stay in the wheels, but all nice and neatly done. But it's down to now just an advantage of 9 seconds. The Team Ineos dropping back into the clutches through this technical section. This is what's particularly complicated for the teams on these team time trial bikes. hasten to add, they are more difficult to handle than a regular road bike, Robbie. It's not as simple. They don't feel quite the same, and through the turns it is a little bit more complicated.
That's right. The angles are all different. You're completely tipped forward. It's a very different position, and the bikes are built for aerodynamics, not for compliance. And it does take a little bit more handling through the corners, and you have to be a little bit more careful. Yeah, get it just right, and you get it just wrong, it'll buck you off pretty quick.
Pretty ginger stuff for the teams through the sports zone here. Tom DeMille and Bike Park and out onto the open roads very shortly as Team Ineos with quarter distance complete. Still hang on to the lead, but it's a tenuous one because the Mitchell and Scott squad are coming with a little bit of a charge. Got back to Caharal, still hanging on ahead of Israel Cycling Academy, but now just 10 seconds between them last time we heard. And Team Dimension Data also coming with something of a charge. Now ahead of the UAE Team Emirates, Nippo Fantini still sitting 7th of the 7 teams in this runner-up group. There is the Israel Cycling Academy squad down to 4 riders. They've managed to overhaul the Caharal team, who began this test with just 4 riders. So disappointment really for the Israel Cycling Academy team, going so well, but have already lost a rider. Might be, teams will be planning that they won't go the whole distance with all 5, but losing a rider this early, surely not in the plan.
No, that's too early. That's never in the plan. In fact, we saw in Hammer Stavanger, as we see Bidon jettisoned down the finish straight. We did see in Stavanger with Mitchelton Scott, they had a mechanical problem for Alex Edmondson very, very early. Dropped his chain. It got jammed in between the chainring and the bottom bracket. He had to stop, and the mechanic had to jump out and grab hold of it and reef it out from in between. But immediately that happened, the team director was on the radio telling the team to stop and wait. It's way too early to go ahead with 4, because in that situation, you might think, well, wouldn't it just be faster to keep going and just leave him behind? But if you have another problem for someone, you're down to 3. Rider number 4 is the one who counts at the finish. So it's too risky to go ahead with 4 so early.
Yeah, good reminder. We certainly will give them that one again. It's the 4th rider over the line. That's the counting rider. So that's the one you watch. If it comes down to a bit of a blanket finish between any of the teams for any of the positions, always watch for the 4th rider across the line. So they certainly will want to keep as many riders in there for as long as possible. Here we have at the moment when Mitchell and Scott are going to move into the lead of this runner-up group. And it's bad news for Leonardo Basso as he gets a shout from his teammates to let them know that the Mitchell and Scott squad are coming by.
Well, there is the pass, and that is a pretty slick pass too. They are going so much quicker along this stretch. Mitchelton Scott, maybe a little bit of a rush of adrenaline making the pass, but trying to make it cleanly and quickly and get into their rhythm, and probably wanted to make it before that little switch through to make it clean, get your last rider clear of the team you're passing before that little chicane through to the other side of the road. Gaps opened up.
Tough to dictate exactly where you do the pass, especially this early in the event. They'll just want to keep charging through, charging on, but some way adrift of the rest at this point. And Nippo Fantini, the Italian Pro Continental outfit, 15th in the first 2 days, looking dangerously like it might be a replication of that performance through the 3rd day of action. So for the Italian Pro Conti squad, not really able to replicate the highs of Italy a couple of weeks ago.
I think they're sporting possibly a couple of riders who are feeling the effects of having ridden the Giro d'Italia. And that is showing today in the Hammer Chase. There's absolutely nowhere to hide in the Hammer Series. If you're not right on your game, you get found out very quickly. Dropped out the back, left for dead while the others move on. This is Israel Cycling Academy, down to 4 riders.
In front for them, charging along, Itamar Arnhorn is pushing hard.
Matthias Brandl, former world hour record holder. Number 113 is Clement Carissy.
Oh, and they're struggling to keep the 4 together. You can see them really just frantically trying to get back on there. It was a full-on sprint, wasn't it? It was like a sprint for the finish line there, just to make sure you stay in the wheel. Also, we see at the back of the Team Ineos lineup as they're trying to keep Oendul just there. Oendul on the back of this group now. For Team Ineos, they at least have the card of the Mitchell and Scott squad there. They can't sit in the slipstream. Do they move over the other side of the road? Well, I think there's enough distance probably between them.
There's enough distance
but
there.
Is that going to help to keep them in there? And ought to be
it gives them something to chase. So psychologically they can see what they've got to do. But look at that speed of Mitchelton Scott, 60 kilometres an hour. Cameron Meyer riding at 450 watt power output. And there's yet another catch. Dimension Data make their way past Caja Rural.
Team Dimension Data have passed another team, so they're on something of a charge, to say the least. The African team still a 5 together. Now they have passed Caja Rural, Israel Cycling Academy next in their sights, and the way things are going, having started 6th in this runner-up group, heading towards 3rd, still lying in 4th as things currently stand. A little bit of a conversation there between the Commissar and the Caja Rural.
Yeah, another reminder to Caja Rural, get out of that slipstream. You've been passed. It's now your responsibility to make sure you're not in the slipstream. Pull yourselves across to the right.
It's a natural impulse, isn't it?
It is.
It's hard to just instantly do it, and if you get a little bit of a reminder and a kick, it's no surprise, because I mean, the entire sport is about slipstreaming, and these riders are slipstreaming each other, and then when they're caught by another team, it's hard to sort of go against your natural impulses and instincts, and Caja Rural have at least done that. They've dropped down behind Team Dimension Data, whether by choice or whether it was involuntary. The Team Dimension Data squad continue to charge on, and there's Israel Cycling Academy still with their 4 together, just about, but Team Dimension Data look very strong indeed. Quick reminder of their lineup today with Lars Bach, Jay Thompson, Mark Renshaw, Tom Jelter-Schlachter is the Dutch representative in here, and Rasmus Tiller. That's a very, very strong lineup.
Well, my guess at the start when they took off, I thought Dimension Data would catch 3 teams, and they're about to get the 3rd catch just part way through lap 2 and move themselves out to the right. So also making sure they're doing the right thing, not running right up into the slipstream, which when you're making the catch you can do. You run right up into the wheel and then switch across. And I've already gone out to the right-hand side and cleanly and smoothly passed the Israel Cycling Academy team.
So Team Dimension Data now up into 3rd of this runner-up group, you might say. Team Ineos and, Mitchelton Scott, then Team Ineos, then the Team Dimension Data team. Smoothly through and into 3rd. Can they get on terms? Well, Mitchelton Scott were 10 seconds down through the first lap. Team Dimension Data were 1 minute 52 seconds down at that point. So it's quite the ask to see them, to imagine that they're going to get on terms. It's going to be quite a long time if they do manage to do it, and I think Team Dimension Data probably lost a little bit of time through that first lap to the Mitchelton Scott squad.
Well, a large gap now, you can see it there. Ineos at 6 seconds, you see them in the same screen behind Mitchelton Scott, and then a big gap back to the next team on the road, which is Team Dimension Data, 1 minute and 42 behind Mitchelton Scott. And at the moment, Team Ineos managing just to keep that gap status quo. They've been passed, so they've lost some 36 seconds to Mitchelton Scott. But with them dangling there in front, it does give them that marker. And sometimes in a team's time trial, it's difficult to make yourself go hard enough. But when you've got another team there to chase, well, that definitely makes you go hard enough. You've also got to be careful not to go too hard and go in the red and completely blow yourself up and come out even worse.
Things can change, can't they, across a full hour of racing? You've got 50k out here, so things look like they're going absolutely swimmingly for a while. You lose a rider and the impetus goes out of it, the strength goes out of your group, and you try to get organised as well. You don't get quite as much rest. You're having to go up and do more regular turns.
Well, the teams will be very aware of the chances of a mechanical failure, a puncture, for example, and they'll all have a plan beforehand of when do we keep going and just leave that rider behind, or from how far out can we afford to do that? Or do we have to wait and keep them with us? And I think from about halfway, you'd have to make the decision, if you're in it for the win, that you lose a rider for whatever circumstances, push on.
Well, Team Ineos are being towed along to a certain extent, not in any literal sense, but maybe metaphorically, or just by having the side of Mitchelton Scott ahead of them. There hasn't been much of a trade in time since the Mitchelton Scott squad were able to get on terms, close that 30-second gap, put another 6 seconds into the Team Ineos squad, and now Team Ineos with Kenny Ellison absolutely fighting tooth and nail to stay in there for as long as he possibly can. Look at the watts that he's putting out. He's not a big guy though, so those watts are pretty significant for a rider of his stature.
Well, he's only 52 kilo compared to the, say, 70 kilo of Alex Edmondson. So quite a big difference in average power. But also you can see Mitchelton Scott a kilometre an hour faster average speed.
Team Dimension Data now, 145 behind Team Ineos. They started this test fully 2 minutes and 7 seconds back, so they have closed. There's a net gain for Team Dimension Data against the second place team, but for all that, it looks like the Team Ineos squad have upped their game a little bit. They've started to increase their pace, so the rate of capture not quite what it was. This hurts.
I'm just looking at the facial expressions of Kenny Elizondo here, and he's sucking in the big ones. He's just gritting his teeth as well.
It's easy for you to laugh.
Really in trouble on the back of that group when a big guy like Philip Organa goes to the front and puts the power down. But yet another catch, and this is UAE going past Caja Rural, and they're trying to just get the next team in their sights, which is Israel Cycling Academy.
Well, UAE have now overtaken Caja Rural. It's slipped back into 4th place, so the UAE squad's now up ahead of, and they've got 4 teams pretty much right beside each other at this moment, with the Team Dimension Data squad tracked by the 4 riders now from the Israel Cycling Academy team. Team UAE, or UAE Team Emirates, still have their 5. And Caja Rural, who started with 4, are fighting something of a rearguard action and trying to stay close to the wheels of the other riders and the other teams in front. And we've got 4 riders in shot there, 4 teams in shot. It's extremely tight.
And we see it's the World Tour teams who are making their way through the Pro Continental wildcard entries in the Hammer Series. Team Dimension Data, they've gone right through and already made 3 passes. Now Team UAE past Caja Rural and about to do the same with Israel Cycling Academy. So the world order is being restored at the moment in this group.
You would expect that in team time trial racing, wouldn't you? Because the Pro Continental outfits don't get quite as many opportunities to race on their time trial bikes as a team, and you know, and also there's greater financial resource to put the time into testing and practicing and training as a squad. Yeah.
And as you would expect, the depth of talent available in a World Tour team, and World Tour riders quite often come out of the Pro Continental setup. So, you know, as they reach that next level, they're snapped up by the World Tour teams, which leaves the Pro Continental teams to go back to the development drawing board and try and bring them through. But it's a great experience. There's a lot of young riders in those Pro Conti teams, and they'll be learning plenty by racing the Hammer Series amongst some of the very best teams in the world. 12 World Tour teams on the start here in the Hammer Series.
Yeah, it's a point well made. They're just better athletes in general. There's greater strength and depth amongst the World Tour teams, and that's as it ought to be, as you would expect, as the team riders are calling the hazards and letting their teammates know. There was a right-hander coming up for Team Ineos, still stalking and tracking the Mitchell and Scott squad. Could there be something of a tactic, a plan in here? Maybe they were expecting to drop into the clutches of the Australian team, and maybe they can think about coming again later on.
Well, Mitchelton Scott, they're focused on setting the overall fastest time. They are the fastest out on course at the moment. They've already taken the 30 seconds off Ineos, plus now another 6 or 7. So they've already taken 36, 37 seconds. But maybe Ineos just thinking, we'll try and hang in and see if we can just overhaul them again, just to be the winner of the runner-up group.
What would that do to...
across the line?
Yeah, I mean, if they can just be with them and just by the merest hint of just by getting their 4th rider ahead of the 4th rider from the Mitchell and Scott squad at the end. So we go through 2 laps now, so just half distance for these teams up front in the runner-up group race of the Hammer Chase in Hammer Limburg 2019. If they can stay there or thereabouts, if they get to just about by a fraction of a second beat the Mitchell and Scott squad, well, Mitchell and Scott squad would have a faster time in the Hammer Chase, but the Team Ineos squad would finish 9th and Mitchell and Scott squad would be 10th. If that makes sense to you, it's all done on time for the winner of the stage, but then this is a race between the teams and their final position in the event is based on where they cross the line.
Well, this is testament to the consistency of the effort of Mitchelton Scott. Their first lap was 13 minutes and 36 seconds. It showed as 14:06, but of course they started 30 seconds behind. So they're on actual time. They did a 13:36 lap 1. Their next lap was in 13 minutes and 26 seconds. Of course, lap 1 is from a standing start. And only 10 seconds difference between the 2 laps. The standing start would account for that. So pretty much on the exact same schedule through the first half of this race.
Well, that's impressive. Over 12.4 kilometres to, 10 seconds probably is about what you'd lose for a standing start, isn't it? It's got to be not more, 7 to 10 seconds. So over 12.4 kilometres to be within a couple of seconds of exactly the same schedule. That's remarkable stuff. Remarkable stuff, too, for the teams that are vying for the minor positions in this runner-up group, with Team Dimension Data, the ones that are making a name for themselves, running 3rd at the moment.
And we see that catch has been made in the background. UAE past the Israel Cycling Academy. So it's the 4 World Tour teams in this runner-up group. There's Israel Cycling Academy, Qatar Ural, and somewhere in the background, Nippo Vinifantini.
Well,
1 minute 54 behind now, Team Dimension data. So they're leaking time to the top 2 teams.
Exactly that. Across the line, the Israel Cycling Academy squad behind the UAE Team Emirates squad. Qatar Ural also staying in touch. It's a super job from the Pro Continental outfit as Nippo Vinifantini squad are not quite into the stadium, not quite across the line yet, so they've got a little bit of work to do. And they're secure as things currently stand is 7th in the runner-up group, so that would have confirmed them as 15th and last in the Hammer Limburg 2019. Dimension data now putting a little bit of daylight into UAE Team Emirates, who are gritting their teeth to try and stay in touch, but it's not going to be easy. The Israel Cycling Academy squad, they're thereabouts, and Kenny Ellison is just doing sprint after sprint. He's making huge efforts to stay in here for as long as he possibly can, for just that reason that you had outlined a little earlier, Robbie. I mean, they need to keep 5 together for as long as possible.
I think also for Kenny Elizondo himself and his development as a rider, this is the perfect opportunity to hone his skills in the team's time trial, and it's good for him to hang in as long as possible. And any little thing you can do will help the team, even if that's as much as staying at the back, calling the rider who's dropping back in between, missing a few turns, getting some of that recovery, and then later on being able to contribute to the team. So you've got to sometimes be a little bit modest about your abilities in the team time trial.
There's an honesty required.
And yeah, back yourself off and say, listen, I've got to miss a couple of turns, but I'll make it up to you later.
Well, he's going to try and do a turn now as Wayne Dool just slotted in behind the French climber Kenny Ellison, not exactly in his specialist field. But he's going to try and contribute as the Qatar Ural squad are doing a solid job too. Started with 4 and they are doing and producing a pretty consistent performance to stay in touch with Israel Cycling Academy, just sitting 1 in front of them. So positions overall in this event with Mitchell and Scott leading this runner-up group. Therefore, they are officially, as things currently stand, 9th in Hammer Limburg, ahead of the 10th place team, Team Ineos. Team Dimension Data, 3rd on the road at the moment, therefore 11th, ahead of UAE Team Emirates, Israel Cycling Academy, Qatar Ural, and out on the road yet to complete their 2nd lap, the Nippo Vinifantini squad, as Mitchelton Scott continue to charge on. Eduardo Affini is a big, tall rider, presents plenty of shelter for Rob Standers.
Guys, we're 2 laps in now, so if you're feeling good, don't be afraid to go a little bit longer. If you're feeling a bit under the pump, obviously take it a little bit shorter of a turn. The gap between you and Ineos is really starting to open up now.
Well, there's something you would have expected to see too. Once Mitchelton Scott made the catch on Team Ineos, they were able to hang there for a while with that, having Mitchelton Scott in front of them as a marker to push them on, but it has got to them and the gap is opening up as Matt Wilson gave through. But importantly, a reminder to the riders, we are halfway through now, so if you're feeling good, it's time to start cranking it up if you can. But very importantly, like I mentioned about being modest about your effort and your capabilities, saying if you're feeling under the pump, don't be afraid to just back it off, shorter turns, even if you've got to miss one, you've got to miss one. But starting to rely on the stronger riders in the group. And even experienced riders in a team's time trial really rely on the trained eye of a sport director to go in on what he's seeing and give that advice. A gear bigger, a gear smaller, ride a little bit more out to the other side of the road, or keep an eye on rider X, whatever, look after him, that sort of thing. And that can really help a team dial it right in, be really smooth and get the fastest possible time.
Michael Hepburn, part of the chase team from Limburg in 2018 for the Mitchell and Scott squad. When they won the chase, finished 3rd overall on that occasion, behind the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad, but they were the fastest team in the chase, and this is an event to which they attach particular importance as a matter of pride that they win today.
It certainly is. They do pride themselves on the team's time trial and their performances in that. It's kind of a pity there's no longer a World Championship team's time trial. It was always a great test at the end of the season. A number of teams that really did pride themselves on that. Mitchelton Scott, one of them, Deceuninck-QuickStep, BMC in the past as well.
Some teams, or at least some people, thought that the World Championship should be for national squads and that it was a little bit incongruous that you have these trade teams. Others bemoan the lack of it, actually. It's just they've just got done away with it this year. And they've replaced it with a national teams event, an altogether different relay event. Might have been interesting to see national squads going in team time trial. Would that have been easy to organise? Perhaps
like
not.
the old days, the four-man 100-kilometre teams time trial. What a torture test that was.
Yeah, that was the real thing, I'm sure.
I rode a couple of them. I didn't learn my lesson after the first one. I did 2 or 3.
Never again after that.
Oh no, they weren't a lot of fun.
Yeah, extraordinary event. That's the real thing, wasn't it? Back in the old amateur.
Yeah, before time trial bars were invented too.
Yeah.
Ouch.
The UAE Team Emirates have a little bit of work to do, but they're thereabouts as things currently stand. They're sitting fourth of the teams out on the road at the moment in the runner-up group. The Mitchell and Scott squad extending their advantage. You remember it was just 6 seconds when they went across the line at half distance. The second of 4 12.4 kilometre laps have been completed now, and we're out on the road on lap 3, and the gap has just started to stretch, as Matt White told us a little while ago. They've doubled their advantage. Doesn't sound like much, but 13 seconds now to Team Ineos. Are they starting to break the motivation and the resistance of the Ineos team?
Well, the Mitchelton Scott riders would have loved to hear that news from Matt Wilson, that gap is opening up. There's one thing about making the catch, but you can sense the team is hanging in there, and it agitates when you've passed someone, and you feel them hanging onto your coattails. So
yeah,
they would have liked to hear Matt Wilson's voice coming through saying the gap is opening up.
Could be interesting too for Team Dimension Data, because they're now starting to lose a little bit more time to Mitchell and Scott. That's been the pattern since the start, but Team Dimension Data, coming from 6th in this group of 7 squads, were the ones that were on the charge earlier on, putting 3 teams behind them. But now, is there a chance that Team Ineos are going to start to drop back into the clutches of Team Dimension Data? In turn as well, the other teams that they've managed to overtake, Team Dimension Data, are staying thereabouts.
It's all really stacked. You see the gaps haven't really opened up that much. Team Dimension Data, maybe they've gone out just a little bit hot in that first lap. They made the catch on UAE. You see these all 4 teams still in the one shot. So UAE just pegging that gap to Team Dimension Data, and in turn behind Israel Cycling Academy, they've got that same sort of system where we saw Ineos hanging on to Mitchelton Scott. They can see them, so they've got that motivation, they've got a marker to ride to, and just helping them to just push that little bit harder.
They're a well-oiled machine, aren't they? Although it is not easy, for all that it looks easy. Eduardo Affini just getting an opportunity, just get out of the saddle and ease the back, ease the muscles. It hurts on those bikes, not just the lungs, but I mean it's just an unnatural position, not one that they're used to.
It is quite an uncomfortable position, and certainly the most aerodynamic and efficient position is not necessarily the most comfortable one. You see the riders who are the best in the time trials, they do spend a lot of time on the time trial bikes. They do a number of training rides per week on a time trial bike, and in the past that was unheard of. And then in recent years, riders make sure, and the teams make sure, they have the equipment at home. They have a time trial bike which they keep at home, so they do regular trainings, because you do need to train the muscles in this position if you're any hope of putting out a performance like this one.
Yeah, a lot of riders as well, if they have to use the home trainer, which becomes a necessary evil during the winter when the weather conditions are less than clement, they will set up their home trainers so that they're in a time trial position, just for the added pain and suffering and torture of to go with having to ride indoors.
Yeah, well, it just loads the muscles up so much differently. You're leaning right forward. It does put a lot more pressure on the hamstrings as well, and particularly on the gluteus muscles, the ones through the backside and your lower back. A lot of pressure coming through that area. You really need to train that, and a lot of riders work extra hard on their flexibility as well to be able to ride in that position and stay supple.
Yeah, Eduardo Affini was the rider who was relaxing. He's out of the saddle again. Of course, he is a neo-pro. I'm going to make an entirely unreasonable assumption that he's maybe not got quite as much experience on the time trial bike. That's not necessarily the case, of course. A lot of riders can come up through the track or come up through time trialing is an important speciality for him, and that's often a great way to shine, isn't it, for a young professional rider? If you are one of the best athletes, the big motors that can perform in the time trial. Look at Owain Doull, the big effort that he makes to get back in the wheel. They're the 2 big efforts, aren't they? On the front, and then again getting back in the wheel when you drop back.
Yeah, it's one thing about making a good effort on the front for your team. You've got to save just that smidgen of energy. You've got enough to get back into the wheel, and we saw Owain Doull under pressure as he came to the back, and it was big Filippo Ganna who went to the front, the individual pursuit world champion, and just winding the pace up just a bit, which definitely hurts the teammate. It's the face of Kenny Elissonde following Diego Rosa.
Ryan Dool on the back, proudly wearing the flag of St David. He is, of course, a Welshman, born in Cardiff, 26 years of age. And the Team Ineos squad always have placed considerable pride and importance on the team time trial. The Hammer Chase is an event that has been successful for them in the past. They won Hammer Limburg, the very first inaugural event in the Hammer Series 2 years ago. And Wayne Dool settles into that efficient but less than comfortable crouch. He rides up through the line. These are fantastic images, isn't it? Great to have so many motors out there to support the riders out in the Hammer Chase, and the quality of the images we get in this event, unequaled, I think, in any sort of team time trial style format that you get. Albeit this is entirely different. This is all about the first team over the line, not just about the times. Times are relevant, and that's how they decide who wins the Hammer Chase, but the overall positions, finishing positions in Hammer Limburg are dictated by the finishing order across the line.
Well, here's the stats for Lars Back on lap 2. 52 kilometre an hour average, 365 average power output. Lars Back is the man right in the middle of this quintet, number 101. He's the man, I think, really as the captain on the road, determining the tempo of the group, along with Mark Renshaw, who's no stranger to riding a good team's time trial. And as I mentioned about Brett Lancaster being a gold medalist in the team's pursuit on the track in 2004, Mark Renshaw, he won the gold medal in that alongside Brett Lancaster from 15 years ago.
So they know the quality of the advice that they're getting, and Mitchell and Scott complete three-quarter distance. 3 laps of this 12.4 kilometre circuit have been completed, and the Team Ineos squad are coming through to take the bell, but the gap is going out. The advantage is increasing for Mitchell and Scott. As they get the bell, it's showing at 22 seconds. Make that 24. Another couple of seconds lost in that final few hundred metres through to the line. 2:15 back to Team Dimension Data, third on the road. 11th overall in Hammer Limburg 2019. Time to take a drink. Not the easiest thing in the world. Of course, the riders on these time trial bars, as they're called, tri-bars, skis, call them what you will, they don't have brakes up there, do they? So the ability of these riders to ride so close behind each other really is exceptional.
Well, Declan, I've just been having a look at the time splits of Mitchelton Scott. We've got to remember we have to take 30 seconds off that time to get the time of Mitchelton Scott, because they started second in this runner-up group, 30 seconds behind this team who went off first. Lap 1, Mitchelton Scott, 13:36. Lap 2, 13:26. Lap 3, 13:32. Not far off, the pressure starting to come on, 6 seconds slower on that lap. It is the end of the third lap of 4.
Well, have they broken the resistance and the will of Team Ineos? I'm not exactly sure. You'd care to commit to that one? And if they have, is there a sense that it's job done? Is it really? I know their focus is about winning the Hammer Chase, so they have to keep in mind the fact that we've got the finalist group coming up later on. They've showed themselves to be quality athletes over the first 2 days, so they've got plenty of motivation as well to go for the overall win. So for the Mitchell and Scott squad, they know they need to keep the hammer down all the way to the line, and that's no doubt the encouragement they're going to be getting.
Yeah, and there's definitely no looking in the rear vision mirror for Mitchelton Scott. It's eyes all ahead and just concentrating on riding the fastest time possible, and that's what it's been about all the way through. Not focusing on the catch of the team in front, not trying to take off quickly and grab them as soon as they can and get tactical after that and try and be the 9th best team. If they ride a good team's time trial, a good chase, they will do that anyway, but they want to focus on the absolute fastest time they can do.
50 seconds between Team Ineos and Team Dimension Data, and that's solid work indeed for the African team, given that they started this test fully 2 minutes and 7 seconds behind the British registered squad. So for the Team Dimension Data squad, the signals are good, the trend is in the right direction, but can they get it all done in one single 12.4 kilometre lap? It might be a little bit beyond them to close a 50-second gap, because Team Ineos still look solid, they still look, keeping it all together, and maybe just not quite got the same wattage as the Mitchell and Scott squad, but they've maintained their focus and their system, their rhythm is still there. UAE Team Emirates as well, still with the 5 riders together. Israel Cycling Academy having slipped back to 4, but they're still thereabouts, in touch with UAE Team Emirates. But Mitchell and Scott all look smooth and serene, their progress. to what the instructions are from the team car.
That's really good, guys, really good. That was 13:22, so fastest lap so far.
The intermediate time is 40 minutes and 54 seconds.
And we're all on, all on. Guys, don't be afraid to just take a little bit of a breather through here, just a little bit. And then we really try and open it up for this last lap, hey?
So all on, and that's good news. A little bit of a breather, an opportunity just to take the tiniest of micro rests. Is that really there for them?
Micro rests, yes, but it doesn't feel like much. And I've got to go along with the maths of Matt Wilson. I was way off. It was 13:22 that lap. So they've gone quicker each lap. They have.
Oh, well, fair play to Mitchell and Scott. They're absolutely flying. And they're keeping this one perfectly together. Eduardo Affini, that big motor, big stature, and a rider I think we're going to be hearing a lot of in the future. He's scored some great successes in Hammer-Stavanger a few weeks ago and followed that up indeed with a stage win in the Tour of Norway. So he's a rider who's really moving up and into a World Tour outfit, and he hasn't been cowed by the experience so far. Comparisons between Rob Stannard and Diego Rosa, as you might expect, the greater wattage from the man in black and yellow.
Well, look at that speed too, just a touch under 56 kilometres an hour along this long open stretch as they head south away from Sittard. And Mitchelton Scott have gone faster every single lap, and now in the last 7.5 kilometres of this Hammer chase, it is the register open and pull all that cash out.
Yeah, they're spending what they've got at this stage, and they've got loads by the looks of things. They've got a bit of credit in that lactic acid bank. Team Ineos pushing on for what they're worth to try and hold off Team Dimension Data. That seems well within their compass. Final finishing position of 10th seems to be the likelihood for the Ineos squad, who, as I say, won this event 2 years ago.
It's an interesting battle taking place behind the top two teams in this runners-up group. Team Dimension Data just 13 seconds ahead of UAE, and in turn just 5 seconds ahead of, quite surprisingly, Israel Cycling Academy, with right behind them Caja Rural. Teams that were caught quite quickly, but have settled into the rhythm really well. And we could see a couple of sprint battles coming up to the finish to decide the final placings in this runners-up group here at the Hammer Limburg. As you see Nippo Vini Fantini, the 15th and last team, coming through and well off the pace. We've got no one in their sights and going through the motions as they get the bell for one lap to go.
Still got 5 together, and they'll press on over the final 12.4 kilometres, but it seems, yeah, as you say, they're going through the motions. The minutes and minutes up the road between themselves and Caja Rural.
Yeah, that is a massive gap. Just 12.4 kilometres to go now for the Italian squadra. But out front, Mitchelton Scott storming their way to fastest time. They're going to take 9th overall in Hammer Limburg. But what they're really focused on, what they believed they were capable of before today's event, was they can win the Hammer Chase, the fastest time overall from all 15 teams. So it'll be quite a long wait in the hot seat. Let's see if they can hold off the likes of Deceuninck-QuickStep, Jumbo-Visma, who are also here with quite a strong team's time trial squad.
So 1 minute and 50 seconds indeed, not 50 seconds. 1 minute and 50 seconds between Team Ineos and Team Dimension Data. That is a gain for the Dimension Data squad in this Hammer Chase. So ultimately they'll have a higher position, you would imagine, if they can maintain this, than Team Ineos in the stage, in the day's activities. But they're not going to get on terms with Team Ineos, who are secure, I think, at this moment in 10th position. Team Dimension Data, though, need to think about UAE Team Emirates, who are still dangling there, about 15 seconds behind them. Israel Cycling Academy behind them in the 13th place overall, and that would match their best ever finishing position in the Hammer Series. So if they manage to overhaul the team in front, for what it's worth, it would at least be a personal best in the Hammer Series. Everything counts in small amounts by times, doesn't it?
Well, what we so often see in the Hammer Series is teams get into those personal battles. They start racing the team closest to them. Not really thinking so much as if they're going to be 10th, 11th, 12th or 13th, but let's just beat that team that we can see. And what I really love about this Hammer Chase format is the time is taken on the 4th rider across the line, and it sometimes comes down to being a sprint match on time trial bikes to get technically your slowest sprinter across the line in front of the other team's slowest sprinter.
Yeah, we saw that in the first ever Hammer Limburg, didn't we? Teo Geoghegan-Hart, who no one thinks of as a galloper, came up with this fantastic sprint out of the final turn just to overhaul. Was it Max Valscheid? I'm trying to think.
Valscheid was just in front of him, but he did enough to overhaul the couple of other riders from Team Sunweb.
Yeah.
It was quite an incredible finish to what you watch as if you're watching a team's time trial, but in a completely different way that it all unravels right at the end.
So a great turn just a few moments ago from Roy Oliveira from the UAE Team Emirates squad, and up front Mitchell and Scott team as well with their riders still smoothly putting it all together. Leonardo Basso just moves off the front for the Team Ineos squad, is down the back. Bit of a shout there, was it, from Diego Rosa?
A bit of a scream in desperation. Get there in between.
Well, that's good news for Rosa, but it certainly made things very difficult indeed for Leonardo Basso after his turn comes off the front, has to fill a hole. Managed to do that successfully, but signs of the cracks starting to appear in amongst the Team Ineos quintet.
Well, you see it on the screen, but you also see it in terms of that ticker at the top of the screen. That time gap has been going out and out, and in fact Mitchell and Scott are no longer in the field of vision of Team Ineos. They've ridden well and truly away. They brought them pretty quickly after one lap, and they hung in for a long time.
They're no longer racing any of the teams in this runner-up group. They're in actual fact racing the teams in the group that are racing after this, the finalist
just
group.
racing the clock.
Yeah, they're all about the clock, trying to get that time so that they can win this hammer chase. That is the entire focus for the Mitchell and Scott squad. Great response after 2 tough days of racing. 14th, and that was something that they had a little bit of a post-mortem about, didn't they, in the hammer climb. That's not what they would have expected. It's not necessarily their specialist event, but 14th was second last of all the teams in the hammer climb, and that put them on the back foot. 5th in the hammer sprint yesterday for the Mitchell and Scott squad was a good response. Today is a sign and a signal that the motivation and the morale is still very strong in that Australian registered team, and they want to try and come up with a victory on the day. Well, a victory in the runner-up group seems inevitable at this point. It's just about what the time is at the conclusion of 49.4 kilometres. Similar distance for the riders in the finalist group to complete later on.
See Kenny Elizondo there at the back of the group, and this is just a little bit further forward. The backward-facing camera on the bike of Diego Rosa, and staring down the barrel of his teammate as we get another catch, a reverse catch, because this pass was made the other way around earlier on. UAE went past Israel Cycling Academy, and now they are putting one back on the team from the UAE.
Well, it's great stuff, isn't it? Israel Cycling Academy trying to improve on that 13th position, move up ahead of the 12th place team UAE Emirates, and this could be a little bit of a shock, a little bit of a surprise. Are we going to see a further response? It's all about trying to time it, isn't it? We're down towards the closing stages of this runner-up group. The 49.6 kilometres soon to be completed by the Israel Cycling Academy squad in the blue and white colours on the right hand side of your picture. They're so close to each other, and green flag flying at the moment, but one wonders what the response is going to be from UAE Team Emirates.
Well, some real side-by-side racing, and UAE Emirates, they've seen them now come up alongside, and just were trying to hold them on the hip, as it were, a bit like track racing, get them on the outside and just keep them there, prevent them from making the pass. At the moment, it's Israel Cycling Academy with the nose in front, but only just.
Only just, and only 4 riders as well. UAE Team Emirates, it's a bit of a drag race between them, as Israel Cycling Academy did the burnout and really went for it, but, well, wonder have they gone too early?
Well, that's the thing, it's tactical now. It's about the 4th rider across the line. Maybe they would have been better sitting just off them, just gaining their composure and ready for a big finish, and just try and overhaul them in the final straight. As we watch Mitchell and Scott, they are in that final straight and on their way to the fastest time and top spot in the runners-up group.
We watch the clock to see what the total time is for the Mitchell and Scott squad. They've kept all 5 together. It's been an impeccable performance from the Australian registered squad. No one to touch them. They want to win the hammer chase in Limburg, and they're desperate to try and achieve that for a second successive year. year, the Michelin Scott squad of Alex Edmondson, Michael Hepburn, Cameron Meyer, Rob Stannard and Eduardo Affini come across the line to complete 49.6 kilometres. It's been a solid performance to say the least. 54 minutes dead is their recorded time. They will finish 9th overall in Hammer Limburg 2019.
Let's remember, take 30 seconds off that time because the clock was already ticking when they went off. So it's a 53.30 time for the Hammer Chase for Mitchelton Scott.
Well, 53.30 is the target for the 8 teams going out immediately after this. The race that follows is the big one. It's the hors d'oeuvre. This to decide positions 9 through 15 in Hammer Limburg 2019. For Team Ineos, it is going to be a 10th overall. Following up from their 6th overall in 2018. They were the Limburg champions inaugural back in 2017. 4th in Stavanger, following up with 10th. Warm round of applause for the Team Ineos squad as Leonardo Basso, Wendell, Kenny Ellison, Filippo Ganna and Diego Rosa complete their 49.6 kilometres of torture.
54 minutes, 55 seconds for Team Ineos. And that last split time for Mitchelton Scott on the first lap 13.36, then 13.26, then 13.22, and the last lap 13.06. Faster and faster all the way through. A really even ride and emptying the tank right towards the end. That's a great ride. Just under 50 kilometres in 53.5 minutes.
It's exceptional stuff from the Michelin Scott squad. Negative splitting to absolute perfection, and has something similar happened for the Israel Cycling Academy and UAE Team Emirates squad, because Israel Cycling Academy, having tried to respond and come past the squad that had already passed them earlier in this Hammer Chase, well, they find themselves blitzed again once more, and now they're going to try and find a way to do it again. But UAE Team Emirates had saved something. They had something in reserve. They have all 5 riders, and the commissars watching with interest at the performance of those 2 teams. Here's the 3rd team across the line to confirm their status as the 11th squad overall in Hammer Limburg 2019. The Team Dimension Data squad, all 5 together for them as they race through the final 500 metres and up towards the line. Lars Bach, Jay Thompson, Mark Renshaw, Tom Yelta Schlachter and Rasmus Tiller have completed for the African team and kept it all together. It's a very solid performance indeed. Is it going to be the 2nd fastest team? We'll get the abacus out to see what happens. There's quite the scrap happening behind as well between UAE Team Emirates and Israel Cycling Academy.
Well, Dimension Data, as we expected, they've made the pass on 3 teams ahead of them. Quite the scrap behind at Israel Cycling Academy. Well, looking like they just went too early with that rush to the line. Dimension Data, and they stopped the clock. 2 minutes 49 down on Mitchelton Scott. And then we will have to get the abacus out and see how far behind them they started.
UAE Team Emirates duly hold off the Israel Cycling Academy squad for 12th. As Israel Cycling Academy have emptied the tank. Been a useful contribution. Dennis Van Winden among their quartet. The local man proud to be racing on home roads. Cajaruel, another team that has struggled out there a little bit. They started with 4, which was never ideal. And they have kept all 4 together as they had to. As we remind you, it is the 4th rider across the line. So a little bit of a shake of the heads, a wry shake of the heads indeed for the Spanish-registered pro-continental team as they bring their quartet of riders home to the line. Alan Banashek in amongst them, Xavier Canillas, Joel Nicolau and Nelson Soto. That's 14th for the Cajaruel squad. Michelin Scott can celebrate and congratulate themselves on a job well done. Is it well done enough? That's the question.
Well, we will have to wait and see, because we have 8 other teams who will go out and try and crack this time set by Mitchelton Scott. Not only try and crack that time, but try and crack each other for the overall win in Hammer Limburg. But that is a very slick time. Once we take into consideration they started 30 seconds behind Team Ineos when the clock started running, and 53.30 for 49.4 kilometres.
For Team Ineos, just not the right combination, just not able to hold off specialist Michelin Scott. Solid performance, secure in 2nd in the runner-up group, and for what that is effectively 10th overall in Hammer Limburg. Not quite what they would have hoped for.
Maybe not what they hoped for, but possibly exactly what they expected. Looking at the lineups, and when I spoke to some of the Mitchelton Scott guys before the race, they said, well, we look at our lineup and we look at theirs, we will catch them.
Right.
They're just very matter of fact. They're not sort of being big-headed or looking down upon them. They just said that's just the fact of the matter, looking at the lineups as far as being suited to a team's time trial goes. So we'll catch them.
Team Dimension Data solidly through third in the runner-up group.
That's young Rob Stannard, and just talking with Matt Heyman about the power stats. It's one of the big things a lot of these riders do nowadays. Straight after, they go straight to the computer and they look through the analysis of the power data, and they know it hurt. They want to put a number to it.
Well, Nippo Vinifantini is still out there. We've almost forgotten that the 15th team overall in this event, 7th in the runner-up group. The Pro Continental outfit from Italy have yet to complete. They've kept 5 together, and they have honoured the event with their contribution and done as solid a job as they could possibly do, given the relative strength that they have on board. But for Nippo Vinifantini, we'll welcome them home in a little while.
So, Declan, I've put my pen to paper and I've come up with some intermediate times. So it is Mitchelton Scott, 53.30 as fastest. And interestingly, now we've been able to work it out, Team Dimension Data, second fastest of the group, 1 minute 12 off the pace. They were 13 seconds faster than Team Ineos. Then it was UAE, Israel Cycling Academy, Caja Rural, and the next one, of course, 15th, will be Nippo Vinifantini when they can stop the clock. They're about to take that hairpin turn with about 600 metres or so to go. Ride their way through, and they've been the most consistent team of Hammer Limburg with 3 15th places in a row.
Well, Deceuninck-QuickStep might have something to say about that later on if they can manage to take the victory in the Hammer Chase to go with overall success in Hammer Limburg 2019. That's the target for them. For Nippo Vinifantini, the target is merely to get to the finish line for their 5 riders: Ruben Acosta, Joan Bucompany, and Mario Cima, Sho Hatsuyama and Giovanni Lunardi bringing it up to the line. So we're running our eyes across the finishing times from the lead groups in this. So 53.30 is going to be the target time for the riders in the finalist group coming up very shortly. Nippo Vinifantini complete the runner-up group. They bang the boards, they send them home. Heroes all. 15th overall, fully 7 minutes and 27 seconds down on Mitchelton Scott. Having started the day, well, less than 2.5 minutes behind them. Less than 2 minutes behind them, indeed. It's a bit of a leakage of time for Nippo Vinifantini, but that's it. The runner-up group is complete. Let's have a look at the times. It was indeed 53.30 for the Mitchelton Scott squad as we remind ourselves of the images of the squads heading away. The Team Dimension Data squad on the charge earlier on, mopping up some of the Pro Continental outfits in front of them, including Caja Rural, who started with 4. Team Dimension Data were on quite the charge, and the battle was always to see which was going to be the second fastest team. Would it be the African squad in green and white? Would it be Team Ineos, who started the day at the head of affairs but were relatively quickly overhauled? And it was Team Dimension Data that ended 3rd across the line. But at that point, it was already Team Ineos home and hosed. They had started first with an advantage of 30 seconds on the Mitchelton Scott squad, and 2 minutes and 7 seconds up the road ahead of Dimension Data. Well, they came home in second, overhauled by the Mitchelton Scott squad, but solid performance nonetheless for the Team Ineos squad, finishing the day 10th overall. And they were the pre-event favourites. No surprise, really, that Mitchelton Scott, who attach huge importance to this event and had brought a quintet of riders among the very best in the world at this particular very specialist discipline, relatively quickly overhauling Team Ineos on the first lap of 4 laps of 12.4 kilometres. The Mitchelton Scott squad going faster and faster through the 4 laps, completed in 53 minutes and 30 seconds for just a smidgen under 50 kilometres. It's a remarkable finishing time. And that's the target for the other squads. There is the finishing order. Mitchelton Scott just under a minute ahead of Team Ineos. Team Dimension Data 3rd across the line, just under 3 minutes behind. UAE Team Emirates, Israel Cycling Academy, Caja Rural, and Nippo Vinifantini in that order to complete the runner-up group and to complete the first half of our racing action here in Limburg this afternoon.
So there's those two sets of results to look at. Of course, the overall standing in Hammer Limburg. So Mitchelton Scott will find themselves 9th overall, Ineos 10th, Dimension Data 11th. And of course, keeping an eye on those times for the result of the Hammer Chase. And that time set of 53.30. And these 8 teams, our finalist group, well, they'll be in the back of their mind thinking about that time as well. But the most important thing at the Hammer Series is just be the first team across the line, and it's Deceuninck-QuickStep who will lead them away with a 30-second gap over Bora Hansgrohe. If they can hold them off, and indeed everybody else, they will win Hammer Limburg. They'll make it 3 from 3 over the 3 days. It's still a long way to go. In fact, 49.4 kilometres to go of super intense racing to see if they can get the job done.
So with Mathieu Bodnar, Bora Hansgrohe, now you had a pretty strong day in the Hammer Sprint yesterday. Can you talk us through it?
Yeah, I'm surprised also by myself because this is my first race after some rest and training period. Last race it was Tour of Romandie, so that's mean I also recover well and train good later. So we have to looking for today.
So you've made it into the finalist group, which your sport director Jan Zemke was saying that was your target, but you're actually second in the group. So you go off 30 seconds behind QuickStep. Can you actually catch them?
I don't think so. Will be nice, of course, but they are really strong. They saw already here yesterday and the first day, like they dominate this race. We are happy about second place. This is really good for us, I think. The goal was top 8. Today we have to defend the second place. It will be nice when we attack the QuickStep team, but yeah, you know, that team is really strong. It will be nice when we finish this race in the podium.
So Mathieu Bodnar says that he can catch Deceuninck-QuickStep and he's happy with second. What do you think?
I don't believe him.
Yeah.
I think he's playing a different game. He's talking it down.
Do you think you'll convince
because he sort of led on. He first says, no, I don't think we can catch him. We're happy with second. But then that little snippet. But I think it would be nice if we can attack Deceuninck-QuickStep. And I think that is exactly what he really has in mind.
Well, he and the Deceuninck-QuickStep team had quite the thing going yesterday, didn't they, with Fabio Jakobsen among their top-scoring riders. I wonder what Fabio Jakobsen thinks about racing in the Hammer Chase on home roads.
I'm with Fabio Jakobsen of Deceuninck-QuickStep. Now, your team won the Hammer Climb, you won the Hammer Sprint, and you're going off first in the finalist group today. You must like this race.
Last 2 days were nice. Of course, if we win, we are happy, but in the end, you only win the Hammer Series if you're first in a chase. So, yeah, we have to do one more day.
And you are particularly strong in the Hammer Series. Can you talk a bit about what makes the team special for Hammer?
Well, I guess we have a good lineup in general, so everybody is feeling good and motivated. And then we have a mix of riders with climbers like Remco and strong guys like Yves and Davide. And then yeah, there's me and Michael who can do sprints. So in the end, we have a good balanced team, and I think that's the key to be good in the Hammer Series.
As I said, you go off first in the finalist group. You've got Bora Hansgrohe 30 seconds behind you. Can you hold them off?
We will try. Personally, for me, it will be like a sufferfest. It will be hard. We have a couple of really strong guys on the team time trial, and for me, it would just be an hour of pain and try to do as much work as I can without dropping, and then hopefully we are faster than Bora and Lotto Jumbo.
What an hour of pain, he says, well, with a smile. It's a sufferfest, it's a hammerfest, call it what you will. It'll be interesting to see what sort of a team that Deceuninck-QuickStep have for the Hammer Chase coming up. And they were going to be the first team off the start line very shortly with that 30-second advantage. Deceuninck-QuickStep have been in imperious form through the first 2 days of racing. Dries Devenins is into action at last to accompany Remco Evenepoel, Fabio Jakobsen, Yves Lampaert and Michael Morkov. They've won the first 2 days.
Bora Hansgrohe, the big chasers with Erik Baska Maciej Bodnar, Oskar Gatto, Juraj Sagan and Andreas Schillinger trying to close down that 30 seconds.
Well, the CCC squad were, when they were named BMC last year, second in the chase and fifth overall in Limburg 2018. I wonder what Greg van Avermaet and co can do today.
Team education first with Mitch Docker, Sebastian Langeveld, the sprinter Dan McClay, the big strong Kiwi specialist Tom Scully, along with Sepp van Mark, who's always motivated to hurt himself when it comes to big intense efforts.
Made a few yesterday, didn't he? And he is in the pink outfit, getting set to head off the final team of 8 in this finalist group. So the riders getting their final instructions as the 5 riders selected by the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad. They have got Dries Devenins to come into action, who got the first 2 days off, so he's a specialist to come in to assist his teammates. The other riders, with the exception of Davide Martinelli, have done the first 2 days of racing. So he's been excused duties today. 30-second advantage for the Deceuninck-QuickStep.
3, 2, 1, go!
And the finalist group is underway as the hammer chase begins in earnest, and this is for the overall victory. They have earned an advantage of just 30 seconds. Is that fair? They've been dominant. They've over 1,000 points, scored more than Bora Hansgrohe, the next best team, but only 30 seconds advantage. What can Bora Hansgrohe do about getting on terms?
Well, that's the beauty of the Hammer Series. Those time gaps are predetermined, no matter how many points you score in the other disciplines. 30 seconds, that is how quick that goes, because they are off and in hot pursuit of Deceuninck-QuickStep, and they see them cross over on the other side of the Tom Dumoulin bike park, and they will have them in their sights for most of this hammer chase. That is quite an advantage. Even though they're 30 seconds behind, they have the advantage of seeing their prey up in front, and in turn they'll be seen by Team Jumbo-Visma.
Well, Bora have already closed 2 seconds advantage on the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad as Team Jumbo-Visma third into action here, and they're going for glory. Cohen Bowman, Tom Laser, Paul Martins, Jos van Emden and Taco van der Hoorn are the quintet that are racing for the Jumbo-Visma team. Got to chase 28 seconds to get on terms with Bora Hansgrohe. Meanwhile, next up, Team Sunweb.
Well, I think Jumbo-Visma will be very wary of the team in red and white behind them, with Bakelands, Bol, Kamna, Stora and Walscheid. A very handy team's time trial team, so a very good combination for this hammer chase. And the gap also very small to the next team in front, just 25 seconds that they need to close down.
Yeah, 4th overall for the Sunweb squad last year. Trek Segafredo, well, they haven't always starred in Hammer Series racing, so great opportunity for Fumiyuki Beppu, John Degenkolb, and the other riders from the Trek Segafredo squad, Fabio Feline, Alex Frame, and Jasper Stuyven.
Well, I think we can also expect quite big things from Trek Segafredo with the likes of Jasper Stuyven, the time trial specialist, a very good classics rider, but an extremely good time trialist, and a real powerhouse in the team's time trial. So perfect for the chase as we see Lotto Soudal now head out on the hammer chase. Adam Blythe is the man who leads them away.
21 seconds to try and close down Trek that started 5th. Lotto Soudal 6th away as we prepare for the arrival of the CCC squad, including Greg van Avermaet in their lineup. They are 20 seconds behind Lotto and they've got fully 147 seconds to make up to get on terms with Deceuninck-QuickStep.
Well, this is the team who set the fastest time in the hammer chase in Stavanger a couple of weeks ago, although a different combination. They're missing one of the big drivers of that day was Lukas Wisniewski, the man from CCC, not here this week. They have to do without him. This is education first.
Still a pretty interesting quintet, isn't it, for the EF Education First squad. The final team into action in the hammer chase in 2019 as at Limburg, as the 5 riders, Mitch Docker, Sebastian Langeveld, Dan McClay, Tom Scully and Sepp van Mark put it together. Meanwhile, up front, they're already well into action, and having lost a couple of seconds through the sports zone, they've managed to actually add a few seconds. It's a net gain of 6 seconds since they left the bike park for the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad.
Well, Bora Hansgrohe may be starting just a little bit quicker through those first couple of turns, but Deceuninck-QuickStep really settling into the rhythm well. On the back here, number 51, this is his first event of this Hammer Limburg at the Hammer Series. Dries Devenins, so brought specially in for this hammer chase. He's a specialist in the team's time trial, so they've been keeping that ace up their sleeve.
Yeah, Fabio Jakobsen was so wry with his smiles, as if it's all going to hurt, it's going to be painful, it's going to be awful. We've got different specialists, we've got climbers, we've got sprinters. He didn't actually mention that they had one or two team time trial specialists in there. They were fourth in this event last year, but of course they were the overall winners. Fourth, I should say, in the chase in terms of the time it took them to complete the what was it, 3 laps on that occasion. 4 laps now. They've extended it this year. How relevant is the fact that you've got an extra lap?
Well, you just have to dose your efforts a lot more carefully, considering that you do have that extra 12.5 kilometres. We saw that done to perfection by Mitchelton Scott, riding those negative splits, as you said, getting faster every single lap. And Bora Hansgrohe, they are just seeing themselves fall a little bit further behind. There's 3 seconds at the moment. They've given back to Quick-Step.
Yeah, Bodnar hits the front and he really drills it, and that puts Oscar Gatto at the back in a little bit of pain. Bodnar we're expecting the longer turns from. He's been in imperious form so far. Meanwhile, third off the starting blocks, it was Jos van Imden leading the Team Jumbo-Visma squad, and it'll be instructive indeed to see whether they manage to close down, because with Jos van Imden they have a very, very impressive, one of the best time trialists in the world, just coming off Giro d'Italia. Looking okay for them at the moment, though.
Well, that gap staying exactly the same as what they took off with. 28 seconds the difference between Bora Hansgrohe and Jumbo-Visma. That was the difference when they went away. 30 seconds between Team 1 and 2. 28 between 2 and 3, then 25, then 23, and so on and so forth. So the gaps get smaller as you go down the order. Yes. Of course, those teams starting in 6th, 7th and 8th have a big, big gap to make up on the likes of Deceuninck-QuickStep. So that is a massive ask for them to get up and win Hammer Limburg by being the first team across the line with their 4th rider.
And just dropping off the front there, having made his contribution, Fabio Jakobsen. How many points did he score yesterday? And what about Remco Evenepoel, who is just 19 years of age? Had a good look at his bike actually before the start. He's 19, as I say, 58th tooth front chain rings. He's not in junior gears anymore, is he? He's a big unit. He's got the strength at such a young age, still not fully developed, so you wonder what his overall potential is in this sport. He was absolutely immense, and it was interesting, wasn't it, to see that the team were willing to give him the space to recover yesterday. So he did ride the Hammer Sprint, but he didn't go full bore, just rode along at the back and was happy enough to drop off with a couple of laps to go.
Yep, saving the legs a little bit. And I just noticed how comfortable Fabio Jakobsen was looking, because he had time to just reach down and nonchalantly just tighten his shoe up another couple of clicks. Number 53, Jakobsen, the man who performed so well yesterday in the Hammer Sprint. And as a sprinter, he couldn't resist that moment on the final sprint for double points at the end of the Hammer Sprint. Hands aloft, getting that photo opportunity. Well, here's a catch already.
Yeah,
CCC off to a flying start past Lotto Soudal.
It's not entirely surprising that they're catching Lotto Soudal. It's a little bit surprising they're catching them just as quickly as they are. They've closed a 20-second margin to get on terms and move up into 6th overall. The CCC squad, as I said, were pretty quick in this 12 months ago, and they're always handy enough, to say the least. Simon Geschke, Greg van Avermaet, Gies van Heck, Nathan van Hooydonk and Guillaume van Kersburg is their lineup.
4 Belgians and a German. So the 4 vans, along with Geschke.
Geschke in the van. He's got that van to tow him along, so to speak. Going in Quick-Step through this technical section. We got to make the right-hander and get on the gas out of it as Fabio Jakobsen drops off the front. Michael Morku, it is at the back at the moment. And for the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad, what are the instructions? What are the expectations? Are Bora Hansgrohe going to be coming from behind?
3, 2, 1. Now we make an earlier shift. You shift just when you come beside the electric pole. And shift.
8 to 9 seconds.
After the corner we shift to the left. After the corner we shift to the left.
Well, now it's up to us to figure out what that code all means. 3, 2, 1 shift. Something about getting the time checks as well. The mechanic in the back keeping an eye. Geert van Bont, he was the man in the passenger seat. Former pro rider as well. Former winner of Gent-Wevelgem back in 2000, around then, 2001.
Were they using a particular sort of points out on the road to take time checks. Or I wonder if they have anyone out there. It was interesting. I like the idea they've got a code. They're going to be telling everyone. Yeah. So are they going to change the way that they rotate in the line?
That's already all very covert, isn't it? But then what quite simple to understand was about shifting back to the left. Well, there was a lot of shifting, a lot of counting. But at the moment, the clock is telling us that they are 39 seconds ahead of Bora Hansgrohe on the road. So they've added 9 seconds to the head start that they had, that 30-second gap they'd earned themselves by winning both the hammer climb and hammer sprint and being the #1 team to go off. And it's just clicked over to 40 seconds in front. So a fast start by Deceuninck-QuickStep. And we'll only find out as time goes on, as the laps tick by, if that's been a fast start because they're wary about being caught early by Bora Hansgrohe, and if they can maintain this pace, it could well be that Bora are just riding within themselves, sticking to some sort of schedule, and then can start to wind them back in over the next 3 quarters that are left of this hammer chase.
Team Jumbo-Visma sitting 1 minute 3 seconds behind the leaders, Deceuninck-QuickStep at the moment. Remember, they started 58 seconds behind, so they've lost 6 seconds to the race leader. The Bora Hansgrohe squad have lost quite a bit more, so the net gain is at the moment for the Team Jumbo-Visma. So they have Bora Hansgrohe within their sights in the potential, as things currently stand, to get on terms and get up into second place. Sunweb in turn aren't too far away either, sitting 21 seconds back, so they've gained a few seconds in the opening kilometres. And Trek Segafredo, well, languishing a little bit, sitting 2 minutes and 11 seconds back. I can tell you they started 1:23 back, so a bit to find for them.
Well, the team dropping backwards is Lotto Soudal. You see 3rd, 4th, or even 2nd, 3rd and 4th. They're really quite close together overall. Just over 30 seconds separating those 3 teams on the road. And this team, the men in blue from Deceuninck-QuickStep, with 44 seconds. So they'll be out of sight at the moment. Even on that long stretch, it just goes slightly false flat up and dips over, and they get themselves out of trouble. And this is a signal to start rotating around the other way. So you always get your riders to swing off in a certain direction depending on where the wind is coming from. Give everyone else the maximum amount of slipstream. Make it as aerodynamic and efficient as possible.
It's the smart thing, and it's the professional way to go. Can't always be easy to change the rotation though as they're going up the line. Requires someone to stay there a little bit longer.
And sometimes it's just a momentary thing as well. You just feel the wind is just swirling a little bit from a different direction. It makes you want to change. You go to the other side, and then the wind changes back to the other way, and you find yourself changing back again. So they'll get the circuit figured out after a lap or two, and they'll know exactly what to expect as they come around as far as wind conditions go.
Meanwhile, Van Emden not far from the front. When we pick up the cameras again from the Team Jumbo-Visma squad, they're on a bit of a charge. They have within their sights now 22 seconds, is it, if my maths are vaguely correct, between the Bora Hansgrohe squad and Team Jumbo-Visma. So Team Jumbo-Visma with a super chance of improving upon their 3rd place starting order. Remember, they were just 8th in the hammer climb, and it looked difficult for them, didn't it, after their great success a couple of weeks ago in Stavanger. And CCC, well, they're mopping up the teams in front of them, and the Trek Segafredo squad, which had lost about 24 seconds to the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad through the first kilometres. Well, there's what the implications of that are, because they're dropping back into the clutches of the CCC team, who have already overhauled Lotto, who've moved up from 7th into 6th and are about to move up into 5th.
There were 2 catches within the first lap. I mean, they are off to a flying start, the men in orange.
So CCC are up as we watch on screen. It's going to be just moments before they move up into 5th. Push Trek back into 6th. Lotto are down into 7th. The EF Education first. Haven't seen sight of them yet. I'll expect something from them. No, they're a pretty useful combination.
Well, you just saw them pause then. They knew that roundabout was coming up, so they didn't ride themselves up and get caught underneath Trek Segafredo. And just sitting back, and it gives them, in fact, just a little breather. It doesn't really break the rhythm as much as provides an opportunity just to suck in a few deep breaths, just ease off the pedals a little bit, and then make the pass before they swing into this right-left combination and back onto the main road.
So they lose a bit of time when while they're waiting to pass, but then I suppose that it's not quite the total loss, because there's a little bit of a gain with the fact that they get a bit of a rest. So yeah, not quite the loss that you might have imagined. Can you believe it? Already a lap completed for the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad. Off the start line and into action, and now just under 12.5 kilometres are completed. Lap 1 for the finalist group completed in 13 minutes and 30 seconds for the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad. who, remember, started with an advantage of 30 seconds, have put another 50% of that into the Bora Hansgrohe team through that first lap. So Bora Hansgrohe keeping their 5 riders together, but potentially dropping back into the clutches of the team Jumbo-Visma, holding it steady as things currently stand. Well, I was about to say at 22 seconds, make that 21.
Well, looking at those time splits, Deceuninck-QuickStep 6 seconds faster than Mitchelton-Scott through lap 1.
So it looks good for Deceuninck-QuickStep. Great beginning from a standing start. Mitchelton-Scott desperate to get that hammer chase victory. Deceuninck-QuickStep, their principal target is, of course, to take the overall success in Hammer Limburg 2019. But were they to win all 3 days of racing, I think that would be a unique achievement in hammer racing. I'll have to look up the record books for that, but that would be a remarkable statement of dominance indeed for Deceuninck-QuickStep, and that is the target for them. The moment their advantage has stepped up again, another 2 seconds gained of late, and they were 47 seconds clear. The Jumbo-Visma team, about 18 seconds back, so it's getting close, isn't it?
And it's tight as far as the times go for the hammer chase. That puts Jumbo-Visma 1 second slower than Mitchelton-Scott after 1 lap. But it is, of course, the most important thing to be the first team across the line from this finalist group, and that wins you the Hammer Limburg. And Deceuninck-QuickStep look well on their way at the moment. They've opened up the gap over Bora Hansgrohe by a further 17 seconds, and they are looking to go the clean sweep.
Well, no catches among the first 4 teams, so the order remains the same, with Deceuninck-QuickStep still with that advantage over Bora Hansgrohe, for all, though, that it is increasing out on the road up to 45 seconds. Team Jumbo-Visma still sitting in 3rd, but they're closing in on Bora Hansgrohe. Team Sunweb, while they have some work to do, sitting 2:26 back. Started the 1:26 back, I should say, having started 1:23. So it's a pretty solid effort indeed by Team Sunweb. They're going quite quickly, closing down to Jumbo-Visma. So it could get quite tight. I can see this tightening up between Sunweb, Team Jumbo-Visma and Bora Hansgrohe as we run through the remaining laps. 1/4 distance completed for the 6th team across the line. That's Trek Segafredo. They've dropped 1 position. CCC are the squad on a charge.
It'll be interesting to be able to compare the time of CCC to that of Deceuninck-QuickStep and Mitchelton-Scott.
Well, they've gained 9 seconds through the first lap for the CCC squad. They started 2:27 back, and they're now down to 2:19, is it? 2:18?
2:22, so they gained 5 seconds.
So they're certainly on something of a charge, to say the least, for the CCC squad. Long way to go to get on terms with Sunweb up front, but who would rule it out? Having said that, Sunweb are going pretty good. So we're seeing great quality, great consistency between these teams.
Well, that puts CCC as the fastest team overall on time for the hammer chase after lap 1. So CCC 13 minutes and 25 seconds for that first lap. Deceuninck-QuickStep 13:30 and Mitchelton-Scott 13:36.
Simon Geschke on the front for the CCC squad, accompanied by Greg van Avermaet, Gies van Hoek, Nathan van Hooydonk and Guillaume van Kerbulk is the quintet of riders. I almost said quartet, but all the teams still together with 5 as things currently stand. And the Bora Hansgrohe squad have job to do. I'm sure they're going to get on terms with Deceuninck-QuickStep. They've got to try and hold off the teams behind. It's Eric Baska on the front, the Slovakian rider in his wake. Oscar Gatto, the Italian, slightly more diminutive rider. Pretty good in the hilly classics, isn't he? But this is a flat road on a time trial bike. Lotto Soudal now dropping back into the clutches of EF Education first, as Mitch Docker, Sebastian Langeveld, Dan McClay, Tom Scully and Sepp Van Mark put the shoulder to the wheel to try and close this one down. Langeveld just hitting the front for the EF Education first squad. They're going to move up as things currently stand from 8th to 7th overall.
Well, just out of the exit of the Tom Dumoulin Bike Park, and they do almost a lap around the stadium of Fortuna Sittard.
That's where
fantastic sport area here. This what they've got set up here in Limburg with the Tom Dumoulin Bike Park, the football field, all the sport infrastructure, indoor stadium they've got there as well for all the different sports. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely fabulous. There's some fantastic soccer ball kicking competitions, I believe, in that Fortuna Sittard stadium. It's a pretty good cycling around here as well. They've got this fantastic Tom Dumoulin Bike Park with all sorts of different options for the road circuit. It includes cobbled climbs and all sorts of. They've got temporary pump tracks for BMX as well.
It's wasn't that fantastic watching the juniors in action yesterday? They've got the cobble climb, which mimics the Eau de Quarmont from the Tour of Flanders. They've got another section which is the same gradient as the Côte de Berg out of the Amstel Gold Race, and a flat section of cobbles that mimics Paris-Roubaix. So all the juniors get all these opportunities to get a taste of what those races may be like for them in the future, when they may well be riding a Hammer Series and come back here to Limburg.
So many of the kids came over to get the selfies and the photographs with their heroes. Remco Evenepoel was among the most popular riders, wasn't he? As we see that gap continuing to widen between Deceuninck-QuickStep and Bora Hansgrohe.
That's no problem, Fabio. If you do a shorter pull, you do a shorter pull, and it's no problem. Fabio's gonna skip a turn, Fabio's gonna skip a turn. No problem.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. You just recover, Fabio.
53 op Bora, de minuut.
So the catch is made with EF Education first moving ahead of Lotto Soudal as Tom Steels gives the instructions to his team to understand that Fabio Jakobsen, who was pretty nervous, wasn't he, going into this one? How many points has he contributed for this team? It is a team event, and it's a team event over 3 days, and he sprinted and sprinted and sprinted again, and what a contribution that he made yesterday. But he's being excused duties for a few seconds at any rate. They'll try and keep him in there as long as possible. He's the rider on the back here.
Well, we spoke about it when we were watching the runners-up group a few moments ago. Really important for the riders to be modest about their ability in the team's time trial, and that important trained eye of the director sportif behind to look and see the signs and then tell them it is okay to miss a turn. It's more important that you miss a couple of turns, recover, and then you can contribute a bit later, rather than leave your team with 4 now at less than halfway into this Hammer chase. Because if he dropped off already, put himself in the red zone, blew up and had to get tailed off, they're there with four strong guys, yes, but any mechanical, any puncture, well, that will spell the end for Deceuninck-QuickStep for the Hammer chase. They've got to keep him on board for as long as possible.
So thumbs up, understanding that, or is it a case that we can increase the pace, or I'm ready to contribute again? There's going to be a signal back to the team car to let them know whether he's going to miss another turn or whether things are going okay.
Message understood. A sign back to Tom Steels in the team car.
So plenty of codes, plenty of understanding, plenty of hand signals, and plenty of communication between the riders. As you say, it's about being honest about your abilities and also letting all of your teammates know what's possible.
Yeah, you can't let bravado get the better of you. You see now Fabio Jakobsen, he's slotted back in second wheels. He's going to start contributing again. It can be as simple as that. Just miss 1 or 2 turns. Let that heart rate get down just a little bit, and particularly for a sprinter like Jakobsen, that the lactic acid levels go through the roof when he does a turn on the front. Just gives him the opportunity just to clear the legs a little bit and prepare the muscles to be able to go and do a turn like he is right now.
Well, and reasonably long turn as well. I mean, you might have half expected that having missed a turn, he might just roll, just literally roll around and just stay in the rotation, but not actually be able to do any decent length turn. But no, it's quite the contribution there from Fabio Jakobsen, who's recovered from that effort and chomping at the bit, ready to go. Remco Evenepoel just fires it.
Well, he's got to be careful also, Jakobsen. He's had that little bit of respite and then comes through and does a good turn, thumbs down. So he needs to miss another turn. So he's done too much. So he needs to find the balance between the two. He recovers a bit and feels, good enough to do a long, strong turn. But then I've got to miss a couple again. So he's got to find that middle ground. He calls Remco Evenepoel in between. He slots into the gap.
So now he has to follow Evenepoel up, and when Evenepoel hit the front there, he really gassed it, didn't he? And you could see that it was Fabio Jakobsen having to drop in at the back, was fighting and producing sprint not dissimilar to that which was producing and giving them so many points yesterday.
See him swing across now, the little gap he's leaving, and calls the teammate in. So Dries Deveneens slots in and fills the gap. So it's not about just missing one spot and letting one rider in. He'll miss an entire rotation and try and put himself back in his original position where they started, because the team set themselves up according to size, ability as a time trialist, so as not to mess that up. He'll slot back in the original position, so let them do a full revolution.
It's absolutely fascinating stuff, and great to see the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad, the way they adapt to changing circumstances out in the road. They have their plan A, they have plan B, C, D, E as well for various different scenarios, and their advantage is continuing to increase. It's now up to 1 minute and 4 seconds, and look at that. Team Jumbo-Visma are about to overhaul the Bora-Hansgrohe squad. We suggested that this could be likely to happen, and the Bora-Hansgrohe team with Maciej Bodnar a little bit concerned about the ability of his team to overhaul Deceuninck-QuickStep before the start. You know what, I think he actually was telling the truth, because they're struggling a bit out there, and now it could well be that Team Jumbo-Visma, the winner 2 weeks ago of Hammer Stavanger, are about to overhaul the Bora-Hansgrohe team. What can Bora do about holding them off? What we've seen in days in this race already today with the runner-up group and in other events in Hammer.
Yeah, 58 seconds behind Quickstep, and Jumbo-Visma is coming 12 seconds behind us.
22 minutes and 29 seconds. They have a time gap of
So if they come, then we have a good orientation, then we let them pass and we try to stay close to them.
Well, clear instructions from Jens Zemke, and he's resigned himself to the fact that they are not going to catch Deceuninck-QuickStep, and just trying to make the best of the situation, because he also has resigned himself to the fact that Jumbo-Visma, the men in yellow, bottom of screen, are going to come and make the pass. And importantly, like we saw with some of the other teams in the runners-up group, he said we'll have some orientation, so they'll have that psychological advantage of having a pace to follow, a team to follow, maybe drag themselves up a little bit. But what they've got to be careful is overcooking it, going in the red zone, trying to go with the pace of Jumbo-Visma.
Yeah, Jumbo-Visma closed quite the gap, haven't they? And they're now down to within 4 seconds of Bora-Hansgrohe. Jumbo-Visma having closed down a gap of just a smidgen under half a minute. 28 seconds indeed. They need to get going, don't they? Because Jumbo-Visma themselves could be under threat.
Well, they're 26 seconds ahead on the road of Team Sunweb, and I think it's most likely that it's going to be Sunweb who sees Bora next. Jumbo-Visma will make the pass on the men in black, green and yellow. Black, green and white, rather. But the yellow train, I think they'll be able to hold off Sunweb for quite a while yet. And Sunweb, they'll be fixing their sights on Bora next.
This the battle for second on screen as the Bora-Hansgrohe squad drop into the clutches of the yellow-clad hordes of Dutch Raiders. Well, this Dutch registered team and the Jumbo-Visma team have indeed got on terms. So they need to try and make the catch and then move smoothly past as quickly as possible. Probably not the ideal situation to catch just inside that chicane. And the next team on the road are the Sunweb squad, who started this event 25 seconds behind the Jumbo-Visma team. So they've pretty much all of that to do still. It's 25 seconds indeed showing between them. So it's honours even between Team Jumbo-Visma, the yellow-clad riders, just at the top of your screen. As they move into second, Bora-Hansgrohe drop into third, and they've got their instructions. Just try and stay on terms outside the slipstream, but within touching distance of the Jumbo-Visma team in front, and maybe, just maybe, they can battle for second later on. At the moment, it's all looking good for the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad. Their battle is private. It is with a virtual rival, and that is, of course, the Mitchell & Scott team, who scored that wonderful success earlier on in the runner-up group. Also, we're watching from the times for the CCC squad, because they had produced a very impressive first lap time through the second lap half distance for Deceuninck-QuickStep.
After lap one, Deceuninck-QuickStep was 6 seconds faster than Mitchell & Scott. Now they're 2 seconds quicker. So the gap closing back between those two teams on time to be the winner of the Hammer Chase on time. But at the moment, it looks like QuickStep are on their run towards the overall win of Hammer Limburg.
Total sweep could it be for Deceuninck-QuickStep? Remember, Mitchell & Scott just got faster and faster as that runner-up group went, so it could be interesting.
And with 5 evenly matched riders of Mitchell & Scott, who are all able to contribute all the way through to the line, we already see Fabio Jakobsen starting to struggle, so going to get more and more pressure on the other 4 riders of Deceuninck-QuickStep. That's can probably put that down to why that gap has narrowed by 4 seconds over the last lap, because they're starting to struggle as a quintet.
yeah, as a chase quintet, but of course they've brought 6 riders here to Hammer Limburg, and they've all been able to contribute in different ways. And Fabio Jakobsen, for all that he's struggling on the final day a little bit, but he is contributing. He has contributed, well, I don't know how many 100 points in yesterday's sprint. It was super impressive.
Many hundreds. And of course, the most important thing to Deceuninck-QuickStep is that they cross the line first and win Hammer Limburg. Whether they're overall fastest team in the chase, I think will be secondary to them. They'd like it if they can do it. They're still 2 seconds up at the moment after halfway, ahead of Mitchelton Scott on time. But their real focus is lifting the trophy and then, of course, hammering the Hammer Series emblem into the ground at the end of the day.
Oh, I hope they've been practicing that. It's always fascinating to see professional.
Yeah, I hope nobody hits their thumb or something.
Yeah, yeah. Fabio Jakobsen scored 763.5 points yesterday in his sprint efforts, his sprint endeavours. No surprise, he might be feeling a little bit tired today. That was quite the contribution indeed for the Deceuninck-QuickStep team, who maintain an advantage now over the Team Jumbo-Visma squad, who are now in second of 1 minute and 8 seconds. And we're going to keep tabs as CCC come across the line to complete the second lap in 5th place. Team Sunweb ahead of them. Bora already also out into the second half of this Hammer chase. 2:25 back.
Well, they started with an original deficit of 2:27.
They've gained 2 seconds, roughly. Yeah.
So they're 2 seconds quicker than QuickStep. And in turn, 2 seconds further back on time is Mitchelton Scott. So that's the battle for the chase, the day prize, if you like.
Yeah, Sunweb are currently sitting 133 back. They started the day 123, so they've lost 10 seconds to Deceuninck-QuickStep. So that in turn means that they're not currently, things can change, they're only halfway. EF Education first, across the line in 7th. Lotto Sudal yet to complete, and they're down to 4 riders by the looks of things. So the Lotto Sudal team leaked a rider and are struggling a bit. Not much enjoying their experience out there as they try and manage their guaranteed 8th overall. Need to complete here, and for the Lotto Sudal squad, they need something to happen to one of the teams in front if they're likely to improve upon 8th overall as it currently stands. Well, there you have it. The Bora Hansgrohe team trying to maintain a watching brief. Stay, maintain tabs on the team right in front of them. That's Jumbo-Visma. But they have to stay out of the slipstream, and they are at a distance of 5 seconds according to GPS timing. Still 5 together for the Bora Hansgrohe squad through that left-hander. They put it all back together again. On their back is Jure Sagan at the back of this lineup. Bora Hansgrohe are doing solid job, sitting third, having started the day second. What's the plan? Can they get back up to Jumbo-Visma?
So very good. Our goal is to don't let them go so that we can close it in the last lap. That we get to them back in the last lap. That's the goal.
So no thoughts of time from Bora Hansgrohe, from the team director Jens Zemke. It's all about getting across that line and racing team against team. So really trying to hang on to their coattails, just pace themselves off Jumbo-Visma and try and make a charge in that final lap. A little bit like we saw Israel Cycling Academy try and do when they were trying to make the pass back on UAE.
Almost
too soon and blew up. And
yeah, we've seen
time it just right.
We have seen in the past in Hammer Series racing that it's possible to come with that late charge, but you've got to leave it inside the last couple of kilometres, you know.
Yeah. Well, that comment definitely tells you they've given up hope of winning the Hammer Limburg. They're over a minute down, minute 10 down on Deceuninck-QuickStep. They've been passed, in fact, for second place. So salvaging what they can. And this team here on screen, Deceuninck-QuickStep, they are on their way to the win of Hammer Limburg. Just under 20 kilometres to go, but they are fully in control.
In control indeed, with a 1 minute 4 second advantage over Team Jumbo-Visma. Just got to keep it all solidly together. Team Jumbo-Visma, solid performance from them again as Jos van Imden just drops off the front to make way for Tom Laser. Koen Bowman is in their lineup, as indeed is Paul Martins and Taco van der Hoorn. Koen Bowman, who scored such great points for them in the climb, with number 1 on his back.
Well, Jumbo-Visma, they were the third team to take off. They had a deficit of 58 seconds on Deceuninck-QuickStep at the top of the Hammer chase. So they've given away another 7 seconds. not given it, they've had it taken off them
Yeah.
by Deceuninck-QuickStep. But ridden their way from third into second and just holding Bora Hansgrohe at bay at the moment.
Great contribution.
They're also in the mix, in fact, to set the fastest time in the Hammer Chase. So that's a really tight battle on time for the day prize to win the Hammer Chase. And this team here is also not out of it.
Yeah, the Sunweb squad charging along, German registered with big links to this part of the world. Of course, Tom Dumoulin not able to recover in time to race in the Hammer Series in Hammer Limburg in his home event. And Team Sunweb started 123 back. So
well, they're 136, 132 behind at the moment. So they've given up 11 seconds, but it's all about being consistent and being able to bring it home in the second half of this Hammer Chase. So it's a really tight battle on time, but a dominant performance as far as the overall goes. Looks like Deceuninck-QuickStep just have to hold it together, and they won't be caught. But there's a few little cracks when you look at Fabio Jakobsen having to miss turns so far. They can't afford for another rider to start having difficulty.
Yeah, feeling the pinch at all. Yeah, well, last time we saw them, Jakobsen went back up the line, so he was certainly involved in the rotation. So that will be good news for as long as that can possibly last as we get the overhead with the Bora Hansgrohe squad finding that it's relatively easy to stay with Jumbo-Visma at the moment, and they need to be careful that they don't come with a charge unless they feel like overtaking them, and maybe they've got a little bit of a rest go again. Maybe the Jumbo-Visma squad are struggling a little bit.
Well, I would think if they're focusing purely on trying to get second in Hammer Limburg, then maybe don't make the pass. Just wait to battle it out and try and repass them right at the end. But what they do need to keep in mind is that Sunweb are bearing down on them as well. So maybe if you can, you've got to go.
So Juraj take a break. Yeah, Juraj stay on the 5th position. So boys, when you come back, come in as 4th.
Well, important to get that communication. Juraj Sagan just having a little bit of trouble, a lot like we saw with Fabio Jakobsen of Deceuninck-QuickStep. So getting that communication, and that is key in a team's time trial situation, that everybody knows what's going on, that you don't get a nasty surprise when you're coming back and thinking, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, then I slot in. But the rider coming back was unable to slot in that 4th position. You saw him just come on the back of Juraj Sagan. So they all heard it,
but he wasn't able.
But his legs weren't able to execute the plan.
And that communication is coming from the rider on the back. He's giving the signal, because it's not like he can get to his team radio to tell them behind. He's got to do it with hand signals as he drops in behind. So it's relatively rudimentary, but that's really the only way to do it, isn't it?
Well, it now leaves them as a 3-man team, as it were. The 2 riders on the back of Bora Hansgrohe are trying to recover a little bit so they can contribute later on.
Down to the final 10 miles of racing for Deceuninck-QuickStep. It's all going swimmingly for them at the moment, albeit Fabio Jakobsen is going to suffer and struggle on as best he can. And well done and chapeau to him as the other riders from the Deceuninck-QuickStep. Michael Morkel just stepping off the front there. He's got the assistance of Remco Evenepoel, Dries Devenens, and of course Yves Lampert. We've barely mentioned him. What a contribution from him across the 3 days, particularly yesterday. Juraj Sagan riding in the wheels, trying to recover a little bit, trying to contribute again. Tom Laser is among the yellow-clad hordes just a few metres up the road. Team Jumbo-Visma sitting in 2nd place. Bora Hansgrohe just a mere handful of seconds further back.
We see the difference in average speeds there. Jumbo-Visma 1.3 kilometres an hour faster, the average speed over that full 2nd lap. That was taken from the GPS of Tom Laser, compared to the stats being generated by Juraj Sagan, a man who's just started to struggle with the pace for Bora Hansgrohe. They're just maintaining that gap at the moment, though, so they're hanging in there. And I'm sure Matej Bodnar is now really starting to step up as captain on the road and the driving force for Bora Hansgrohe. Just keep them in touch so they can try and make a run through the final lap and see if they can just overhaul them in the sprint to the line.
That's going to be exciting. It's going to be instructive, isn't it? The CCC squad are staying thereabouts, aren't they? Remember, they started this final Hammer Chase 2 minutes and 27 seconds behind the team you're looking at on screen, Deceuninck-QuickStep. It's at the moment showing at 2 minutes and 26 seconds. That's a net gain across over 3 laps of racing into the final lap. Fabio Jakobsen hangs on like grim death for as long as he possibly can. Looking back from the bike of his teammate Michael Morko, the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad are putting it together a very, very consistent time trial. Jakobsen is riding up to contribute as the CCC squad drop out of it. So it's very, very tight between these two teams for the final time that they produce. The question is it going to be faster or slower than Mitchell and Scott?
Well, those 3 teams are in a real battle against the clock and against each other. Just 4 seconds separating Deceuninck-QuickStep, Mitchelton Scott and CCC on time after 2 laps of this hammer chase. And we're just 1.5 kilometres away from getting the next time check. And the instructions continue to come from the Deceuninck-QuickStep team, making sure they stay stuck to the plan.
We still have 1 minute 5 lead. But we keep that concentration up. Never over.
The total focus sounds to me, Robbie, as if it's on today. They're not thinking about a finishing time. They're just thinking about managing and maintaining the gap to Jumbo-Visma behind them.
Yeah, making sure they're doing the most important thing, and that's win Hammer Limburg, be the first team across the line. And maybe the fact that they've got that 1:08 to the next team on the road, they've got a comfortable buffer. They don't want to make any mistakes, make sure they don't mess it up and see it all slip away from them. And I think having that buffer might make them just relax a little bit too much and lose sight of setting the fastest time, and it's maybe exactly what Mitchelton Scott and the likes of CCC want to happen, so they can win the hammer chase.
Yeah, down to the final knockings of this penultimate lap as they'll head out with 12.4 kilometres remaining very shortly in the hammer chase. The finalist group and the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad have been absolutely flying. He's just 19 years of age. He's tapping out a decent rhythm, just around 54 kilometres an hour, 345 watts for a full lap. Not bad.
Yeah, that is certainly some low flying, nearly 54 kilometres an hour average per lap.
Deceuninck-QuickStep come up to complete. They have maintained their advantage. They started this race with a lead of just 30 seconds on Bora Hansgrohe, who have been replaced as the second place team by Team Jumbo-Visma. An advantage now up over a minute and 9 seconds, and it's continuing to rise over the second place team as Bora Hansgrohe stay in touch and are merely now focusing on the battle for second. But could Team Sunweb be coming with a charge behind? What are CCC doing in terms of making progress as well?
Well, Deceuninck-QuickStep well off the front on the road in this finalist group and on the way to the overall win of Hammer Limburg. But when we look at the time across the line, the third lap of 4, Deceuninck-QuickStep 5 seconds down on Mitchelton Scott. So it has swung the other way, and we spoke about being consistent all the way through. 5 contributors for Mitchelton Scott, and it's now become 4 for Deceuninck-QuickStep. So Mitchelton Scott, they'll be very happy to see that time check.
So the victory in Hammer Chase could be going the way of a team from the runner-up group, but the victory overall in Hammer Limburg is still very much within the compass of the team that have led throughout this event. Dominant success in Hammer Climb. It's serene progress through the Hammer Sprint yesterday, and the Hammer Chase today has been straightforward, relatively so, for the Deceuninck-QuickStep team. They're getting it all out on the road, extending their advantage as Team Jumbo-Visma get the bell. 12.5 kilometres remaining for them. 1 minute and 10 seconds, make that 1:11 behind. Bora Hansgrohe almost in line astern, wait to make their final charge for a second place position. They're waiting to pounce. They know that there is the option of a great position on the podium, and indeed it would be a personal best position for the Bora Hansgrohe. It would be a record for them. Third in the Hong Kong Hammer Series event towards the end of last year. Remains their best success and their best position in a Hammer event. They were 7th in Stavanger a couple of weeks ago. Bora Hansgrohe with an option to improve upon that. Jumbo-Visma team are not going to better their best ever. That, of course, was Stavanger a couple of weeks ago. But they were 3rd in Hammer Limburg last year. The local team 6th in the inaugural event back in 2017. So that would be a trajectory that would still be improving on what is their home event. Jumbo-Visma a minute down, but Deceuninck-QuickStep now within the final 10 kilometres. of a bruising and tough weekend of racing. CCC, what are they managing? Bottles are flying, dispensing with beat-ons, which is a bit of a surprise because sometimes they're seen as being something of an aerodynamic advantage. Not too much extra weight. And that's a souvenir that might be snaffled up by an interested spectator. Might be asked to give it back, actually. Quite useful. I don't know if
CCC that come through. 2:26 down on Quick-Step. They started with a deficit of 2:27. So on times at the moment, Mitchelton Scott 40:24, Deceuninck-QuickStep 40:29, CCC 40:28.
Trek Segafredo and EF Education first, almost in line astern as the Trek squad move dutifully over to the opposite side to ensure they're not taking any aerodynamic advantage, but it's certainly finely poised between EF Education First and Trek Segafredo, and EF Education First are on quite the charge. Started the day 8th, moved up to 6th, and finally Jure Sagan cries enough. It's been a brave effort, and the Slovakian former national road race champion has given of his best, and he'll leave it up to his 4 teammates in the closing stages, so they need to make sure they keep it all together. And losing that rider, and indeed Jumbo-Visma have also lost a rider, it's cost the Bora Hansgrohe squad a bit of time. I wonder if that was a little bit of confusion through the sports zone and out onto the open roads. Lost a few seconds there, but Jumbo-Visma also lose a rider, down to 4 already, and quite a while ago for the Lotto Soudal team.
Well, a lot of teams in this finalist group, they're losing riders down to 4, 1 lap to go, so that's something that's fairly acceptable. You can have a rider go overboard. Jumbo-Visma losing one just after Bora Hansgrohe let go of Sagan.
Job well done for Taco van der Hoorn. It's been a pretty smooth and very impressive progress for that squad.
It has been good. I'm a little bit surprised to see it. That it's Taco van der Hoorn is the one who's had to let go. He would have been the guy I would have thought would have been quite a driver of the hammer chase effort of Jumbo-Visma. And in any case, they have managed to overhaul the team in front of them in Bora Hansgrohe. It's an even battle, 4 against 4. And the German team, Bora, they are poised to try and cross that little gap you can see on screen. See if they can leapfrog over the local team, Jumbo-Visma, as they come up to the finish. And it's not just your average team's time trial, the hammer chase. It is teams time trialing for most of it. Then it's a battle, team against team. Get your 4th man across the line, and that is what really counts.
For Bora Hansgrohe, I mean, if they have saved something, they're at 5 seconds. At the moment, they're not getting any aerodynamic advantage. But as they make their charge, it's inevitable, and it's not something that they're, can be blamed for. They are going to get a certain amount of an aerodynamic advantage as they charge up and onto the other team. So if you leave it, it's all about timing. It's all about, and assume you have the legs to do it.
Yeah, well, if you're coming up, you're going to make the pass, but then there's a corner and you get blocked. You have to go on the brakes. It makes it a whole lot harder to re-accelerate and make that pass. And what we have seen the commissaires doing in the final kilometre is somewhat turn a blind eye to the slipstreaming element, because they figure in the last kilometre you have to try and make that pass, and there's corners, and it's inevitable that someone's going to ride in someone else's slipstream, and that's what the hammer chase is all about. It's then open slather towards the end.
So Bora Hansgrohe have time Jumbo-Visma in their sights. Jumbo-Visma having started behind the Bora Hansgrohe squad. But the German team could well be coming with a little bit of a charge. What have they got left? They're within 3 seconds of the Dutch registered team.
Fantastic, boys, the last 10 kilometers. Super. Look in the back, if they are coming, because they also play, huh? No?
Same.
One eye looking forwards and one eye looking backwards. Jens Zemke's got the rear vision mirror and asking the passengers, have a look back, because I think they're also playing the game behind us. But Sunweb, in fact, they have not been able to make any more impact on that gap. Through the first lap and a half, they were making real inroads on the teams of Jumbo-Visma and Bora Hansgrohe. But the last full lap, they haven't taken any more time back. They've been hovering at the same gap at 1:36 behind Deceuninck-QuickStep. And it's been pretty much status quo with the other teams as well. So everybody holding their position at the moment. This is an intriguing battle, whether Bora Hansgrohe can haul themselves back up to the men in yellow and see if they can sprint their way past.
23 seconds a lot for the Sunweb squad to get on terms with Bora Hansgrohe and in turn with Team Jumbo-Visma. Watch out for CCC though, they're on a bit of a charge. They're starting to close it up. They have gained a little bit on the team you're looking at on screen that are heading towards a serene overall Hammer Limburg success, which is, of course, the main objective. But in terms of winning the Hammer Chase with the fastest time, CCC have a shot at it. Mitchell and Scott still in the box seat from the runner-up group. Deceuninck-QuickStep, they're thereabouts, surely going to be one of the top 3 fastest teams of the day. Plenty of contributions there, plenty of communication. As Remco Evenepoel just holds out 4 fingers.
Well, that would indicate that they've lost one.
Just to let them know.
But they haven't. They're well down to 4 working riders. That's indicating. Just letting the others know that situation is back to that of Fabio Jakobsen, needing to take a little break at the back, just catch his breath, shake some of that lactic acid out of the legs, and then see if he can just stick with them. And I'm sure he'd like to stick with them right to the end to enjoy that celebration that they're going to have as they cross the line as a team.
Well, not only that, but he does provide some aerodynamic assistance to the other riders in front of him. By sitting 5th wheel, it just helps the boundary layer just attach further behind, and that just makes it a little bit easier for the rider number 51, Dries Devenins. So there is an aerodynamic assistance there, even if he's not able to ride up and push the wind out of the way at the very front.
Yeah, that might sound a bit strange to some of the people at home who maybe don't have quite the handle on aerodynamics, but that is, in fact, completely true. Just helps the air brake further back over the rider in front. Doesn't push him forwards, but it just helps the air get off him easier.
Yeah, everything counts in small amounts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all of value, and Fabio Jakobsen is doing a solid job, as indeed are his other 4 teammates. They're still working well and maintaining this advantage. Still 1 minute 9 seconds over these 2 squads, locked in battle inside the closing stages now. So less than 5k for the riders on screen. Meanwhile, inside 4 kilometers to go for the squad up front. Deceuninck-QuickStep within touching distance of a glorious success in Hammer Limburg 2019, as behind Team Jumbo-Visma and Bora Hansgrohe locked in combat to see who's going to finish second in the event. At the moment, Jumbo-Visma have the advantage. Have Bora Hansgrohe saved anything for the final push?
On that really long stretch of road, these 2 teams could just see that dot in the distance like an ant on the horizon, and that was Deceuninck-QuickStep riding their way to victory in Hammer Limburg. They will cross as the first team and win the overall. And then the battle remains who will win the Hammer Chase on time.
Here comes the charge you sense from the Bora Hansgrohe squad. Where's the strength going to come from in their quartet of riders still working as Eric Baska, Maciej Bodnar, Oscar Gatto and Andreas Schillinger come to try and get on terms with the the Team Jumbo-Visma quartet. Colin Bowman, Tom Laser, Paul Martins and Jos van Emden in there at the moment. Can they get up there? It seems easy, doesn't it? I'll tell you what, it's anything but.
We've just about got to start comparing them as sprint combinations, and we've seen Bodnar has a good turn of speed. He performed really well in the Hammer Sprint. So does Oscar Gatto. Schillinger is also not slow. Baska is maybe the question mark in that team. And then compare them to the riders of Jumbo-Visma, who's got a kick in that team, because they've got to get their 4th rider across the team. So it's a bit of a case in that sprint of a 3-man lead out for your slowest man. Nurse him across the line. Keep him in the slipstream.
Leonard Kamna hits the front. You saw his stats. He's not a big guy by any means, but he produces some very impressive watts for the Sunweb squad. Want to try and get themselves organised. Well, we've got a big sprint coming up. It's around about a 3 and a bit kilometre sprint for those teams we just saw. It's down to the final 2.2 kilometres now. Jakobsen just trailing in the wake of his teammates. Michael Morku just ahead of him. That's Yves Lampert, the Belgian national road race champion. Just in front of him, also Dries Devenins and Remco Evenepoel.
Well, this is looking into the face of Fabio Jakobsen, and the camera mounted on the back of the bike of Michael Morku. Good news for Jakobsen is they have a healthy buffer, so they don't need him to do that one more big turn. Come on, just one more big one and you can blow up and let go. They're able to nurse him in so he can enjoy crossing the line with his teammates as they're going to win the Hammer Limburg.
Well, first 5k of lap 4 at an average of 380 watts. Not bad indeed. Look at the speed across the tarmac. Here come Bora Hansgrohe. They've saved something for the final push. This is going to be interesting as Maciej Bodnar hits the front. The Polish rider who was such a strong rider. He's actually sitting on the back here. It's I do believe Gatto, is it? No, surely not. On the front. Or was it Baska? That would make more sense, wouldn't it?
Well, this is where the battle gets interesting. When do you make the pass? Do you wait and try and make it a sprint? Do you try and go over the top from long range and then hold them off? it's a difficult one. We saw it in the runners-up group. And we saw the battle between UAE and Israel Cycling Academy, and Israel just, I think, went too early. They should have held off a bit longer. And I'm thinking this is still very early for Bora Hansgrohe to do it, because it gives Jumbo-Visma the chance to maybe just catch a bit of slipstream coming in that last kilometre, line them up in that final 600 metres. And when you're lining them up and sprinting to the line, you're allowed to run into the slipstream and go up and over.
So it could be just a bit of a lead out that Bora Hansgrohe are offering as down and into the final 500-600 metres are the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad. They're inside the final push for glory. It will be confirmation of a dominant performance through the weekend. It was nothing to touch them. Over 1,000 points in the hammer climb, courtesy in large measure from the man wearing number 52 dossard here, Remco Evenepoel. Yesterday we had some great glory from Yves Lampert and Fabio Jakobsen, but all 5 and indeed all 6 riders from the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad have contributed greatly. It's going to be a glorious success for the Belgian outfit as they fan across the road. They want to enjoy this moment together because the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad are inside the final 100 metres. They've done the work. They've performed admirably, beautifully, and it is victory in Hammer Limburg 2019 for Deceuninck-QuickStep. 4 laps are complete. And it was job well done indeed. And is that time going to be good enough? Not so sure it is. 54.01 for the Deceuninck-QuickStep. Mitchell and Scott still very much the fastest. Looks like they're on course for victory in the day. And on the day, here comes Sunweb, want to get involved in the party. Bora Hansgrohe hit the front in the battle for second, just behind them Team Jumbo-Visma. And coming with a late charge, Sunweb have got into the slipstream of the riders in front.
Well, this is going to be a great finish, and this is what really sets the Hammer Series apart. Team racing, it's a team's time trial format, the Hammer Chase. Until this point right now, it's team against team, and it's sprinting it out, getting your 4th man across the line. Sunweb, are they going to make it up? The battle's on between the top 2 here. Jumbo-Visma and Bora Hansgrohe.
Well, it's surely not going to be enough time for Team Sunweb to get up to scrap for second, but Bora Hansgrohe have been overhauled. They did go a little bit early, and Team Jumbo-Visma, who closed down a 28-second gap to get on terms. But remember, all 4 riders have to sprint here because it's your 4th rider across the line. Sunweb still charging, still believing they've got a shot, but they've dropped a rider, and that's not going to help them. So it is indeed Team Jumbo-Visma second across the line ahead of Bora Hansgrohe and Team Sunweb. A blanket finish in the battle for the minor and podium finishes, but it is Team Jumbo-Visma that gets second, Bora Hansgrohe in third, Sunweb 4th. But the victors, Deceuninck-QuickStep, no one to touch them.
Well, a clear victory for Deceuninck-QuickStep in Hammer Limburg, holding everybody at bay by more than a minute in the finalist group. And in terms of time, well, Deceuninck-QuickStep were overall 31 seconds slower than Mitchelton Scott. And now just waiting on this team in orange, CCC, to see what sort of time they can post in terms of the Hammer Chase result.
They started the day 7th. They're heading towards 5th overall in Hammer Limburg 2019 as the CCC team come across the line, sweeping up riders from the Sunweb squad. It's a big charge through for the CCC squad as they stop the clocks, and we look with interest. I'm not sure that was enough. We wait for full confirmation from the timekeepers as to who has got the victory in the Hammer Chase, but no doubt about the overall winners in Hammer Limburg. That's Deceuninck-QuickStep.
Well, that will give CCC a time of 53 minutes and 46 seconds. Quick calculation.
16.
Which will be second fastest.
Good effort
in the Hammer Chase. So the Hammer Chase on time, that will go to Mitchelton Scott. The time set as part of the runners-up group.
Trek Segafredo have responded as well, and quite the charge through from EF Education first as they go to re-ambush the Trek Segafredo team. Another blanket finish. 4th rider, remember? I think Trek might have got that one. Yeah, punched the air because that, 3 riders from EF Education first managed to overhaul the Trek Segafredo squad, but it's all about the 4th guy over the line. So that went the way of Trek Segafredo. Battle for minor positions, fascinating stuff. Team Lotto Soudal are out there. They're going to be the final team to complete Hammer Limburg 2019. The Hammer Chase has delivered plenty of exciting racing and fascinating work there between all the squads as they squeal their way through the final turn inside the final 500 metres for Lotto Soudal. It's just about making it through to confirm their status as the 8th classified team in Hammer Limburg. For the Belgian squad, can't get to the line quick enough. Good hit out in the team time trial format, but the hammer chase has gone the way of Mitchell and Scott, and more particularly the overall winners of Hammer Limburg, Deceuninck-QuickStep. Lotto Sidal through to complete. Adam Blythe, Frederick Frieson, Brent Van Moor, Jelle Wallace and Enzo Wouters, their quintet that began the day. And the crowd sent them home. Lotto Sidal 8th on the day, their fellow countrymen. Deceuninck-QuickStep, best of all though. It really was a relatively calm and secure victory for the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad. Never troubled, never really in any, there was never really any issue. All 5 riders managing to stay together. Communication between them, ensuring that they shared out the workload according to the relative strength of those riders. And Yves Lampert, the former Belgian national time trial champion, on the right-hand side. Huge array and score of points, contribution of points from him in yesterday's hammer sprint. Celebrations all round. Chris Devenins, 2 with much to celebrate, Michael Morko, and of course the young man, Remco Evenepoel. And Fabio Jakobsen, I think, will be very, very satisfied with his effort as well. Job done, celebrations all round for the Deceuninck-QuickStep team. Nothing succeeds like success, and when you've won as much as that squad have, nothing less than success will do. Deceuninck squad confirmed their status, having dominated the hammer climb with 1,067 points. Oh, that hurt. I think Fabio Jakobsen can be satisfied with that. He stayed in there. And there you have it, the confirmation that Deceuninck-QuickStep get the victory ahead of Team Jumbo-Visma. Bora Hansgrohe in 3rd, just pipping Team Sunweb. CCC up for 5th, super time from them. Trek Segafredo in 6th, EF Education 1st, 7th, and the final finisher in the finalist group, Lotto Sidal. It's all been exhausting stuff. Well, what a day out it's been for the riders in the finalist group, as the Bora Hansgrohe squad starting the day 30 seconds behind Deceuninck-QuickStep, never really able to make any inroads into the leaders, and indeed dropping back into the clutches of the Jumbo-Visma squad, as Jure Sagan had given of his best. He left his 4 teammates to battle on into the closing stages, and quite the battle it was with the Jumbo-Visma team. Closed down that 28-second deficit to the Bora Hansgrohe team to make it a superb scrap for the 2nd place on the day and in the weekend. Jumbo-Visma hounding down and closing down Bora Hansgrohe relatively early, but it might have been a tactic or a plan. Bora Hansgrohe saving something for the final push. Still though, it was the Jumbo-Visma team that had enough in hand to respond to that late effort from the Bora Hansgrohe team, finding a path through. And the Dutch registered team showing great consistency in the first 2 hammer events of 2019 to finish 2nd, replicate, or at least to back up that 1st place finish from 2 weeks ago. Deceuninck-QuickStep, well, they led the field away, having dominated hammer climb and hammer sprint, and it was smooth throughout the 4 laps. Never headed, never under any threat, kept it all together. At no stage was the issue ever really in any doubt. These were the moments close to the finish when the Bora Hansgrohe squad got on terms with Team Jumbo-Visma. I do believe that we can head downstairs and catch up with Mitchell and Scott squad, who have been declared the winners of the hammer chase. Team Jumbo-Visma just about holding off the Bora Hansgrohe squad, and Team Sunweb for 2nd, 3rd and 4th positions. And the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad, though, heralded as the victors of Hammer Limburg. Glorious success for them, but the hammer chase going to the Mitchelton-Scott squad. Mitchelton-Scott with a 16-second win over the CCC squad. Team Sunweb, Deceuninck-QuickStep, EF Education first, and the rest. Let's hear from the Mitchelton-Scott team now.
Down here with the Mitchelton-Scott team. Now, Michael Hepburn, you called it before you went out on course. Although you're in the runners-up group, the focus was on winning the hammer chase, and you said, we'll catch Ineos, we'll also set the fastest time. You're some sort of Nostradamus.
Well, that's what we're hoping for, yeah. Obviously, starting in the B group, we were never going to get up for the overall. We lost a little bit too much time in the first couple of days, but coming into today, the focus was to try and win the chase. And we have a strong team for today, and everyone produced a really good ride, and luckily it was enough.
Well, it was enough by over 30 seconds to Deceuninck-QuickStep. But when you were out on course, was there no real concern about riding for a position, or when you caught Ineos, it was just focusing purely on yourselves?
Basically, yeah, we just wanted to get from A to B as quick as possible. Obviously, starting at second in the group, there's only one team ahead of us. We were pretty confident that no one was going to come from behind. So, yeah, we just tried to ride our own race, and luckily we got Ineos quite quickly and can pull away from them.
I'm just going to skip down to Alex Edmondson. Now, 2 weeks ago in Stavanger, you were brought in especially for the hammer chase, and it all went wrong. But today, it was like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, exactly. I think last weekend we didn't have too much luck on our side, but today was a different story. And look, it would have been better to be in going for the win, but yeah, we just had to take what we could, and that was to try and win the chase. And I think, yeah, we really put everything out there, and yeah, to be able to come away is awesome.
Well, Mitchelton-Scott, they put great emphasis on teams' time trials, and the hammer chase is exactly that, with a bit of a twist at the end of course, but must be good to then live up to those expectations.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, whenever you can race, you always want to do well, and this is one with the team time trials that we're starting to show that we are one of the stronger teams. So, look, yeah, I think hat off to all the boys and to the staff. I think, yeah, the last 2 days didn't quite go to plan, but it's really nice to be able to finish it off on a high.
Yeah, good to salvage something. Cam Meyer, one of the most experienced men in the squad, and I think you'd be happy to hear that you guys rode negative splits all the way through. You got faster and faster every lap, and you know, 2 young riders with you. I'm sure you were imparting your experience on them throughout the day as well.
Yeah, it all went perfectly to plan. We had a bit of a chat before the start, and we looked at last year's times, and we actually looked at what they did to win it last year, and we wanted to really go close to those sort of times. So we had good information from coming from the car, and we had a good chat, and it just went all to plan today. So we didn't get off to the best start in the week, but we clawed our way back and come away with some success, so that's nice.
Well done to the entire team, and enjoy the spoils of victory in the hammer chase.
Yeah, cheers.
Thanks, guys. Back to you, Declan. That is what they had to say about it.
Yeah, they had some good things to say too, didn't they? Thanks, Robbie, as Cam Meyer and crew go off to celebrate victory in the hammer chase. Mitchelton-Scott squad confirming their status as the premier team time trial squad. Excuse me, as the Mitchelton-Scott squad look forward to celebrating. All celebrating. Deceuninck-QuickStep as well. We'll head to an appointment with some hammers and some nails. And a bit of bubbly as well. The Mitchelton-Scott squad, interesting to hear that they were getting that information. They'd looked and analysed the data and the numbers that were required to perform. If this, of course, slightly longer than the hammer chase that the riders had last year, an extra lap. And as was pointed out by Robbie, and Cam Meyer was happy to confirm the negative splits, and the continuing escalating improvement from the squad through the 4 laps was instructive and impressive. Okay, let's hear from the Deceuninck-QuickStep team, the overall winners of Team Limburg 2019.
Deceuninck-QuickStep, you guys did it. A clean sweep, as it were. You won the hammer climb, you won the hammer sprint, and now held everybody off. And you won hammer Limburg. How good does it feel?
Amazing feeling. We did a very good team time trial today, where we kept the distance to the teams behind, even though we could see them every time we passed at the finish line. But we did a very smooth ride, and I'm proud of the boys.
You're deservedly very proud of everybody's efforts. Now, when you went out there, was there much thought at all on setting the fastest time to try and win the hammer chase and really sweep everything, or just make sure you got 4 riders across the line first, win hammer Limburg?
We tried to race a bit conservative, so we was going for the overall win first. But since we heard during the race that we had good times, the last lap we tried also to hammer down and see if we could take the stage.
Well, you did enough to win hammer Limburg. Yves Lampart, again, another intense effort, the third day in a row, and how did the legs hold up, and how were you feeling out there driving the team along?
Well, the feeling was quite good, but you know, a team time trial is very hard. Every time you swing off, your legs are exploded, so you have to recover a bit in the train. But yeah, we did a smooth time trial, and we can be proud of our prestation we did today.
Well done to everybody. Enjoy spraying the champagne and the podium celebrations. You are the winners of Hammer Limburg.
Yes, thank you.
Better get out of there, Robbie, pretty quick. The bubbly's about to be sprayed by the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad. Dominant victors indeed. First overall in this event 12 months ago. And they have maintained that status. They've defended that title. The Deceuninck-QuickStep squad now second in the Hammer Series leaderboard. Team Jumbo-Visma's first and second from the first two events, naturally carrying them to the top of the leaderboard. Arms aloft, all five riders in position. Sixth 2 weeks ago, and they have come to Limburg to try and redress the balance and put themselves back on the top step of the podium. And the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad have marched on to glory as we reflect on the final result. Deceuninck-QuickStep with the victory ahead of Team Jumbo-Visma. Bora Hansgrohe did pretty well, but had to make do with third on the day and through the weekend as Team Sunweb moved up to fourth. CCC, Trek Segafredo, EF Education first, Lotto Sudal, and then the first two teams from the runner-up group, Mitchell & Scott and Team Ineos, rounding out the top 10. So that's it from Hammer Limburg for 2019. From myself, Declan Quigley, from Robbie McEwen alongside, it's goodbye for now. Hammer Series Limburg confirmed indeed with Team Jumbo-Visma in the lead. First and second for the first two events of the year. Hammer Hong Kong to come. Deceuninck-QuickStep sitting second and with a shot at overall series victory. Who would bet against them after that performance this weekend? Team Sunweb, Bora Hansgrohe, CCC and the rest. And Deceuninck-QuickStep really have embraced Hammer Series racing. They understand it. Few other squads, I suppose Mitchell & Scott normally would be a little bit stronger. Team Jumbo-Visma have really come this year and got themselves organised.
Yeah, it's about learning how to race the Hammer Series and really accepting the importance of team racing. It's not just about getting one guy up the road and taking a bunch of points. It worked for Deceuninck-QuickStep with the Remco Evenepoel, of course. But having more riders contributing and being consistent throughout, and you're really learning how this series works, is a big advantage. And those who adapt quickly do the best at it.
Interesting approach from the Deceuninck-QuickStep squad as well. They had Dries Devenens to come in, who hadn't raced through the first couple of days. Their other five riders had done the first 2 days of racing, although it's also notable as well, they really only had a couple of riders each day that were scoring.
Yeah, it's just the way it worked out. It maybe wasn't the intention to only have Evenepoel scoring on the climb and Fabio Jakobsen scoring so much. Although he was ably backed up by Yves Lampaert. He did a great job on both days, in fact. Lampaert, he scored a few points on the Hammer climb. He scored very well in the Hammer sprint. But it's about the other riders as well, doing what they can behind the scenes. A guy like Michael Murkov, in fact, is really important, making sure they're getting into those breaks, covering the other breakaway attempts, making sure they're always represented, giving the opportunity to the other guys.
That makes a huge difference, yeah. Well, there you have it, the five riders that were in action today. Indeed, all six have mounted the top step of the podium. They've been welcomed by the crowd to accept the plaudits following a dominant performance, and there might be a little bit more bubbly. That'd be great news. I wonder will they drink this or just spray it everywhere. Dries Devenins, Remco Evenepoel, Fabio Jakobsen, Yves Lampaert, Davide Martinelli and Michael Murku. Your 6 riders from Deceuninck-QuickStep that have come here to Limburg this weekend.
Oh, Jakobsen is really getting prepared for that champagne, giving it a good old shake. Let's see if he can win the cork shooting competition. There it goes.
Deceuninck-QuickStep, the winners of the Hammer Limburg 2019.
I think Davide Martinelli fancies actually having a little bit. He's like, I'm not going to spray that, I'll get rid of all of that. Well, it clinks all around. Wolfpack continues their voracious appetite for victories. Shows no signs of being sated. Jakobsen, Evenepoel, Lampaert, and the rest can now get hammering. See what they got.
Although they were so dominant in the hammer climb and the hammer sprint, it was no done deal. They were going to win this with just a 30-second gap. Those previous results translated into. They did a fantastic ride in the hammer chase to hold everybody off.
Well, it's an exact replica of 12 months ago, in actual fact, where they were 4th in the chase, but won the event overall. And it's what happened today. It's Mitchell and Scott from the runner-up group won the hammer chase today. CCC had started today in the finalist group 7th, finishing 2nd in the hammer chase. Team Sunweb 3rd across the line. And Team Sunweb getting 3rd in the hammer chase. Deceuninck-QuickStep 4th in the chase, and they take the victory overall. It's been an absolutely fabulous weekend of racing here in the southern part of the Netherlands as we celebrate another glorious success for Deceuninck-QuickStep. It's goodbye from Hammer Limburg, from myself, Declan Quigley, from Robbie McEwen alongside. We'll be back with you again, but for now, it's goodbye.
Ik heb al diverse dagen mogen vertellen. Haak is dicht, boem, boem. En ik ben benieuwd wie dat allemaal hier gaat doen. Ik zie al de mannen van de keuring aankomen. Dat is hier zo dadelijk weer. Met de vrije oranje aankomen. Ja, dat is prachtig. Daar zijn ze goed in. Van de keuring. Ziet dat de overal algemeen ingesleept heeft. En dan wordt nu ook de glazen worden gevuld.